We are live, bitches. Welcome to the Kyle is technologically inept hour. This happens literally every time we do one of these. I kind of fumble my way through it, but it's still fun either way. So, let's see. Let me refresh this. Okay, that didn't work. Of course, what I'm trying to do is get into the back end of this YouTube live stream. I'll start talking about stuff in a minute. Don't worry about that. There we go. Live control room. Boom shakalaka bitch. Okay. Here we are. So I'll take some super chats in a little bit, but first let me run through some stuff that I wanted to talk about. I see everybody's jumping in the chat. What's up, everybody? Holla for $1. Okay, so this is this is the pre-Rogan live stream. So I'll be on Joe Rogan Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. When I'm done here, I'll be hopping on a flight. Everybody knows how fucking terrified I am of flying. So even though I don't believe in prayer, please say some prayers for me. I hate flying, man. I hate it with such a burning passion. It's ridiculous. I can't even put into words how much I hate it. So I was talking to somebody about this and they were like, look, it's all in your head. So just, you could override it. Yeah, that's kind of true. But at the same time, it's not just the thoughts that get me. It's also the literal feeling you get when you're flying. You're in like a pressurized cabin and you're, thousands of feet in the air going 500 miles an hour and you're in a little metal tube. And I think I'm like way too much of a control freak. And since I'm a control freak, I'm a perfectionist and I always want to be able to like micromanage shit. And if I'm in a position where I can't, like I'm forced to sit in the same place. And in the case of a flight to California for 6 fucking hours and like there are no options. It's just like, yeah, it's almost like being in prison. It's like, here's where you are and you're not allowed to move really. You're not allowed to like be free or get some fresh air. Like you're just confined to this area. And there's something about that I fucking hate. And just the motion sickness. I told this story before, but when I was a kid, my dad had a boat and we used to go on it and go fishing and stuff. And I never had a problem with, seasickness or anything. But the last time I went on a boat, maybe 3 years ago, I immediately felt sick. The second I put my foot on the boat and just had a little bit of the movement of the water there, I was like, this is terrible. This is the worst thing ever. I feel like I'm going to die. And I should have been smart and said, you know what? I'm done here. I'm not going fishing with you guys, and taking a step off the boat and said, okay, it is what it is. But I didn't. I was like, suck it up, be a man, go out there. And it was like literally 4 or 5 hours of sheer torture. The entire time I felt beyond sick. I don't even know the word for it. It was just like all my brain wanted was to be steady in the same position. And all that was happening was nonstop. And so it was, I can't even put into words how sick I felt. It was the worst fucking thing ever. But what's crazy is literally the second we got off the boat, I felt better. Isn't that crazy? It was the second I got off the boat. I was like, oh, that's it. I'm better. I'm now on flat ground and I feel good again. So anyway, isn't it funny that I'm so strange that I'm more fearful of just the plane ride than I am about doing a podcast where there's gonna be over 1 million people who listen. Because that's what it is. Like that's like afterthought. It's like whatever, talking in front of people's nothing, but the idea of just being on a plane is like it triggers something inside that it's not good. So anyway, now that I've explained to you guys how much of a little bitch I am, there are some things I wanted to discuss. Again, I'll get to super chats in a little bit, but first let me go through some stuff. There's not going to be a show this week, so I wanted to maybe do some stuff now. And by the way, Monday I'll be on the Young Turks for both hours. And then Tuesday is when I'm on Rogan, like I said. But since I'm not going to be here, might as well do some stories for you guys live here. So one thing I wanted to discuss is YouTube decided to punish Infowars for promoting the Florida school shooting conspiracy theory. Now, when we talk about Infowars, I have less than no love for Infowars. I think there was a time when Alex Jones was like half right about stuff and half dead wrong. And what I mean is he was one of the first people to talk about like NSA spying and, oh my God, they're collecting all of your information. And he seemed like he was pretty civil libertarianish. He also was at one time strongly against the Iraq war. So those are the things where I could agree with the guy. But he always just put a heaping dose of conspiracy theory in with it. Stuff that nobody should accept at face value. And also, there's a deeper problem with conspiracy theories, which is if you get too obsessed with a conspiracy theory, then you totally forget about the policy outcome and what you really should be fighting for. So like you're sucking all of the air out of a movement, for example, to end the war. If your main focus is, 9/11 trutherism is correct and we need the government to admit that. It's like, okay, so let's say in some bizarro world, 9/11 trutherism is correct. What if the government admits that? Then what? Like there is no and then. Like so, it's almost like conspiracy theories love to smell their own farts and jerk each other off and act like we have a truth that nobody else has, and let's just keep talking about that truth endlessly. So Alex Jones went from a guy who was like half right about some policy stuff and then crazy about a bunch of other stuff to now he's just Mr. I love the establishment. I love Fox News and Tucker Carlson and Rush Limbaugh, and I'm Trump's biggest fucking defender. And then you mix in being just a standard right-wing Republican douchebag right along with insane conspiracy theories. Like now he tries to pretend like he never said Sandy Hook was a hoax. Bitch, we know you said it was a hoax. It's on video. So if you're promoting that kind of garbage, you're just wrong. Like there's no other way to describe it. You're just incorrect about shit. So I have no love for Alex Jones. I mean, think about the arguments that they made when they said, hey, Sandy Hook is a hoax. The argument was, well, Obama's going to come and take your guns and this is how they're going to do it. Well, guess what, Alex? Obama didn't come and take the guns. So your whole motive is wrong. Like your whole motive blew up. The first thing when there's a crime, the first question is, what's the motive for the crime? If you can't establish motive, then you're wrong. So this is one of those instances where you said Obama was going to take the guns. They didn't take the guns. In fact, the Democrats obviously never even proposed taking guns. The furthest they went was an assault weapons ban, which is just tweaks around the edges. So he's just wrong about shit. Now, having said all that, do I agree with YouTube punishing Infowars? No. Again, this is what people don't understand is if you don't defend the free speech and the free expression of people you absolutely despise, then you don't actually believe in freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Now, of course, there are some rules, like you can't do direct threats of violence, for example. Okay, that's a clear rule. Everybody agrees with that. You can't dox people. Okay, that's a clear rule. Everybody agrees with that. You can't do libel or slander. Fair enough. But number one, those things are notoriously hard to prove. And number two, everything else is open season. You could say whatever you want to say. So Alex Jones has always been promoting backwards, kooky-ass theories. And now is when YouTube decides, oh, we'll crack down on him. And the reason they're doing it is because it's getting mainstream media attention. And the thing that's frustrating is like they think like the mainstream media thinks they're being do-gooders by pointing out like, oh, look at this. YouTube should do something about this when people say crazy things. But then where do you draw the fucking line, man? This is the debate. This is the argument. So if you say, hey, we're going to pull down some Alex Jones conspiracy stuff because of, they're lying about one of the kids who went to this Florida school, or they're smearing him and stuff, which is all true. Well, then, okay, next is, I don't know by what standard you can keep up the Sandy Hook conspiracies. And some of you might say, okay, yeah, take down those too. Okay, but the next is the 9/11 truther conspiracies. Now, by the way, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a 9/11 truther, but it is true that the official story is bullshit. Like, there's giant holes in the official story. So if you question that narrative, is that enough to get your video pulled? So you go from conspiracies about the Florida shooting, those got to go. Then you'd say Sandy Hook, those got to go. Then you say 9/11 truth. And then you get into JFK. Literally the majority of the American people think JFK was not assassinated just by Lee Harvey Oswald. They think something else was going on, whether it's the mafia or the CIA or Cuba, or there's a million theories out there. But that's one that to this day, there's still a vibrant debate going on. And if you say, okay, we're going to pull down this Alex Jones one because it's a conspiracy and it's damaging, and they said it violated the bullying clause of their terms of service, I don't agree with that. They weren't bullying him. They were just making up bullshit theories. Well, then where do you draw the line? And they will always, always, always flip it back on the left. And that's the main point. Abby Martin made this point the other day in a good tweet. She said, listen, I don't, like on Medium, for example, is now pulling down alt-right accounts. And nobody despises the alt-right more than me. I think they're a band of fucking idiots. But why the fuck? I don't even understand. If you leave up their shit, I think more people are going to turn away from them. So the original conspiracy video about this shooting in Florida, the dislikes were like 70% or so. So you know what that means? People watched it, and the overwhelming majority were like, yeah, fuck this. This is bullshit. So you gave it a platform, and people shit on it, and that's exactly the kind of free market of ideas that you want. So when they start over-policing and they pull down the alt-right sites, how long until they start coming for the left? And the answer is they've already started coming for the left. We already know this. Pocalypse was one example of that. Now the deranking crisis is the other example of that. How if you're already a subscriber of Secular Talk, you'll see my videos in the recommended section. But now YouTube is tampering down so that I can't attract as many new people. And this is what happens. They've decided, hey, you're not an authoritative news source. So when you start pulling down conspiracy theories over here, well, then you're also going to start pulling down truth from the left over here. So when I start saying, hey, you do know that the U.S. armed jihadists in Syria, when I start talking about that, some people might hear that and go, that's a conspiracy. Now, they're wrong because I know what the evidence is and I know what all the articles say and I know the reality of the situation, but that sounds like a conspiracy, doesn't it? Oh, the U.S. is funding jihadists? Yeah, okay. The fucking hippy-dippy far-left bullshit. It's a proven fact. But do we trust the establishment and YouTube to be objective about that and fair about that? So no, they're going to start coming for people who talk about the DNC email leaks, and they're going to say, you're useful idiots of Russia, and this needs to be pulled down, and that needs to be pulled down, and then we're fucked. So you have to draw a clean line that says you allow it all. The only things you can't do are direct threats of violence and doxing people and shit like that. But you have to take a principled stand for free speech. And I know some people's response to this is, Kyle, it's YouTube. They're a private company. They could do what they want. To which I respond, you're absolutely right. They can do whatever the fuck they want. I'm not making a legal argument. I'm making an argument from principle. I'm saying if you want to abide by the principle of free speech, then they would act in a way where they say, okay, free platform, you say whatever you want. Here are the very few rules, and that's it. So it's just, I think it's a shame that, they're doing that. And then also, you make Alex Jones a martyr now. That's what just happened. You made Alex Jones a martyr. And by the way, sorry if I peek off to the side here. Tiger Woods is in contention at a golf tournament, and that makes me the happiest person ever. You made Alex Jones a martyr, so now he gets to go out there and say, they're oppressing me because they hate the truth and they don't want you to learn the truth. So Infowars.com and go, join and talk about how wonderful I am and how I'm so oppressed by the powers that be. When in reality, Alex, yes, you are being tampered down by them, and they're wrong for doing that, but you're also an idiot. So, that nuance gets lost on people if you start making Alex a victim. So that's my 2 cents on that. Let me dip in real quick to what's going on here. Okay. Let me go through some of the other stuff I wanted to discuss. So remember the Donald Trump carrier situation from a while back? Donald Trump ran as a populist candidate who said, listen, I'm going to keep your jobs in this country. Hillary's terrible. Bill Clinton was terrible. They did NAFTA and they outsourced all these jobs, and we are going to make it so these corporations keep jobs here. Well, Carrier was the first example of that. It was a brilliant marketing move because Trump literally went to a plant they were going to have their jobs outsourced and said, I am saving your jobs. And at the time, everybody gave him credit, including me, because it looked like, oh shit, look at that. He actually held true and he's keeping the jobs here. And, you started thinking like, well, why the fuck couldn't Obama have done something like this? Or if Hillary were to get elected, nobody could conceive of her going to a fucking plant with, blue collar workers around and talking to them like, yes, we're going to keep your jobs here and let's make a big thing about this because this is what it should be like in America. Well, turns out it was all bullshit because a few months after they did this whole dog and pony show in this kabuki theater, headlines started coming out about how, they just laid off 50 people. Oop, now it's 100 people. Oop, now it's 200 people. Oop, now it's 300 people. Now, it's actually even worse than that because they kept laying off. They laid off hundreds of people anyway, while at the same time, Carrier is getting a giant corporate welfare check from the taxpayers. So it's the worst of both worlds. Before, they were just going to outsource the jobs. Now they're outsourcing the jobs and they're hosing down the taxpayers. So it's even worse than what we possibly could have fucking imagined. Well, guess what? Now we learned it's even worse than what I just described. It's worse than what was already worse. It turns out that they struck a deal, Carrier struck a deal that they get a $2.5 billion Pentagon contract. So The Hill was reporting on this, and they basically say, I'm going to scroll down here because the parent company of Carrier are the people who really got the deal. I want to make sure I get their name right. I think it's United Technologies. A manufacturing giant that struck a deal with President Trump to keep hundreds of jobs in the United States was recently awarded $2.5 billion Department of Defense contract with no competition, no bid contract. This is what was discussed behind closed doors before they did the Kabuki Theater, guys. This is how politics works. Trump said, I'll give you whatever the fuck you want if you just keep these jobs here for a few months. And that's what happened. So United Technologies is the company. They're the parent company of Carrier. They say the company received millions of dollars in tax breaks over 10 years to keep the jobs in the U.S. Greg Hayes, CEO of United Technologies, said at the time they were convinced to stay in Indiana after discussions with Trump and Vice President Pence. But days after the deal was reached, Hayes said in an interview that part of the company's $16 million investment in the facility would go towards investment in automation. So last July, the plant laid off 300 workers at the Indianapolis facility. And in November, the company announced it would lay off more than 200 additional employees. See, this is what it is, man. You're getting fucked. Working class people are always getting fucked. And then guys like Trump come around and he runs as a fake populist and he doesn't fucking deliver. And Obama was similar on this front too. He did a lot of fake populism shit. He spoke against NAFTA. And then he signed some free trade agreements when he was elected. Under Obama, there were 87,000 jobs that were offshored in his final year in office. 87,000 jobs. Now, Trump is actually even worse. 93,000 jobs were outsourced in his first year as president. So you basically have two wings of the corporate party. We don't have two political parties in this country. We have two wings of the corporate party. So it's a fucking shame. And the Democrats have such an opportunity here. They could take over in a blue tsunami come the next election if they actually cared about populist candidates and uncorrupted candidates. But the reality is they're actually fighting back against the populist and uncorrupted candidates who are running. We've discussed the stories about how they're basically swinging an axe at the face of various Justice Democrats who are not taking any corporate PAC money and who are for Medicare for all and a living wage. So it's tough to watch this unfold because we're hurling towards the abyss, and the establishment of both parties is facilitating that and, in fact, putting it in hyperdrive. So, by the way, you guys can start sending in those super chats now. There's just a few more things I want to talk about. So Donald Trump said violence in video games might be responsible for the mass shootings. This is the old 1990s canard that we heard all the time. What's so amazing about Trump is he really is just an empty vessel. Like, he'll say fucking anything. Whoever the last person he spoke to is, like, he'll just be like, yes, that's right. And then he'll just parrot what their argument is. So he's kind of like Hillary Clinton in that respect, how Hillary flip-flopped so many times that you had no idea what she believed on any of the issues. It's a similar thing for Trump. Who the fuck knows what Donald Trump actually believes? And so he took $21 million from the NRA, and he was reliably, voting with them. But to his credit, he actually said, well, let's actually try to ban bump stocks. And the NRA was like, what? So that's another example of Trump he's a fucking loose cannon. You fling mud against the wall, and then certain parts of it stick, and you can't explain it. You can't describe it. There's no way to... The best way to predict his actions is donations, let's be honest, corporate donors. But he also, every now and then, he just throws a fucking curveball at you. And you're like, what the fuck is this? And this is one right here, video games. Like, really? Video games? So for a guy who claims, yeah, let's deregulate and let business do whatever they want to do. Now it's, except when it comes to video games, in which case he proposed some sort of, system of ranking, which isn't there already a system of ranking for video games? I don't know. Maybe there isn't. But no, video games do not cause fucking shootings. Video games are... People can tell the fucking difference, man. I mean, how condescending and pedantic. This idea of like I've played Nazi zombies a million times. Guess what? I don't think I'm actually shooting a real zombie. Like a first-person shooter game, you know what you're doing. You know it's fake. You know it's not real. You know when you watch fucking Bugs Bunny, there's not an actual talking rabbit. That's like, it's just so... It's busybodies in power who want to feel like they're being moral, but they try to do that in the most goofy, ridiculous ways that don't step on the toes of their donors too much. And this is another example of that. And that's just fucking ridiculous. And then the other thing is Zach Carter. So Mike Pence said at CPAC recently, the United States of America doesn't stand with murderous dictatorships. We stand up to murderous dictatorships. Which is just fucking ridiculous. As all of you know, if you watch my show on a regular basis, it's a fact that the United States supports 73% of the world's dictatorships. 73%. So what Zach Carter did is he took that tweet from CPAC, which has that quote there about how United States doesn't support dictators, and he did a list. He did a list of all the dictators the U.S. supports. And, Suharto, Saddam Hussein, before we opposed him, we supported him. And we were besties with him while he was carrying out the height of his atrocities against the Kurds. Ceausescu, the Shah in Iran, Pinochet, Trujillo, Mobutu, Marcos, Duvalier, Somoza, Batista. He just does his long list. Like, I don't know if guys like Mike Pence are idiots or they're just liars. Like, there's a chance Mike Pence is so fucking goofy and ridiculous that he might actually believe in, like, the Kool-Aid version of U.S. history, which is just so sad. But then there's also a chance he knows the reality of it, but he thinks, well, we meant well, so I'm just going to tell a lie about how when we are with dictators, it counts as us being with democracies. So that's that. All right, so you guys can start sending in those super chats now, and I'll try to answer as many as I can. I'm excited about the upcoming trip. I'm looking forward to it. And okay, here we go. We already got something coming in. Does Jordan Peterson give you the alt-right vibe? To be fair, he doesn't. He doesn't give me that vibe. Jordan Peterson, there's parts of him that I really object to, and then there's parts of him I don't object to. What I don't object to is actually the corniest part about him, which is his self-help stuff. I think that actually helps a lot of people, and I don't think there's any harm in it whatsoever. And I think some of it might be getting at some sort of truth about, hey, you'll feel better if you live a meaningful life, and if you're responsible, and if you, do the right thing or whatever. So I don't object to his self-help guru type stuff. The stuff I object to is the religious apologetics, because it's just, he's a really smart guy, and it's just, he just gives high-minded rationalizations to bullshit. And you know, Sam Harris does this thing where you could take any passage in any book, and I think he did it with like a cookbook, and you could superimpose on it some sort of high-minded rationalization that makes it sound like it's a deeper story about human beings. And Jordan Peterson does this with Christianity ad fucking nauseum, and he would never give the same kind of credence and attention to the 4,199 other religions in the world and act like, hey, these are correct and these are getting at something that's true. So I think his religious apologetics is annoying and it's bullshit. And I also don't like how he oftentimes strawmans the shit out of lefties and acts like one thing he loves to say is, people on the left are not motivated by caring about working class people. They're motivated by hatred for the rich. Hey, Jordan, how about you come talk to me? I've invited you to come talk to me so you could have a conversation with somebody who is a social democratic leaning, libertarian leftist, and I'll tell you what I think. You don't have to fucking tell people on the left what you think they think. So I don't like that bullshit. I think sometimes he's very broad in how he categorizes the left. He's certainly not alt-right, though. He's just like a self-help guru kind of guy with kind of standard right-leaning politics. Very smart, but it'd be interesting to have a talk with that guy. Okay. I see the super chats are rolling in now. Here's another corporate donation, Kyle. Remember, just keep telling your audience how great Seltzer is, and I'll let the cash keep rolling in. Hashtag Big Seltzer, baby. If you had a chance to check out the video of Chapo Trap House covering Ben Shapiro's novel True Allegiance, it's hilarious, but also insane, absolutely childish. Shapiro's worldview is the most poorly written book I've ever read. Yeah, you want to talk about a guy who's overrated. Like, I could see the appeal of a guy like Jordan Peterson, even though I don't agree with him on a lot of stuff. Like, I get it. Like, I watch him and I'm like, okay, I see he's got something going on here. But Ben Shapiro's a guy it's like, no, if you're into Ben Shapiro, sorry, you've been misled. Like, he's just objectively wrong about so much shit. But since he talks fast, like, he makes people think he's right, which is ridiculous. So there's that. I know you support legalization of marijuana, but what about other illegal substances like heroin, cocaine, speed, and methamphetamine? It's a good question. So I'm in favor of legalization, taxation, and regulation. So what that means is I'd legalize drugs across the board, but you still regulate it. So in other words, you can't go to the store and get crystal meth. You can't go to the store and get crocodile, which makes people's fucking skin rot off because it's cut with like diesel fuel and nail polish remover and shit. But you can get a much less harmful version of different substances. So yes, weed would be legal. I don't know if cocaine would be legal, but a form of an amphetamine would be legal that's a similar high. A form of an opiate would be legal that's a similar high. Because I do believe, at the end of the day, I do believe in freedom. I just think it should be legal, taxed, and regulated. A lot hinges on that last word, regulation. So like which drugs do we allow? Which ones do we say, hey, this one we're not going to allow because it's too dangerous in how it's made? So a lot more freedom, but also regulation goes hand in hand with that. Kyle, there is in fact a ranking system. It's called the ESRB. And they are the ones that put those labels on games. There you go. Thank you, Connor. Describing who the game is appropriate for. E for everyone, M for mature. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Connor. Would you smoke weed on Joe Rogan's podcast? No. If offered, no. What's a good way to defend against people who say a living wage will lead to inflation? Simple. It's just not true. It's just not true. They're just wrong. You know, people act like, oh, you can't do it because then unemployment will go up and it'll lead to inflation and there'll be all these fucking problems. One response. Australia. They have a minimum wage of about $17 or $18, and they're doing just fucking fine over there. So it's all fear-mongering tactics to try to get people to say, hey, if you work full-time, you shouldn't make enough money to survive, which on its face is a bullshit position. So that's the response to that. Hey, Kyle, I've been curious for a while your thoughts on Randy Bryce, the guy running against Paul Ryan in Wisconsin. Definitely support him. Support him over Paul Ryan for sure. He seems like a decent guy, pretty good on policy stuff, union guy. I don't know the particulars. There might be some finer points I disagree with him on, but if I was there, I'd definitely vote for him. I have a disease that I have to illegally buy medicine from overseas because the FDA has not approved it here. That's fucked up. Do you support individuals' right to bypass the FDA to get medicine from other countries? So that's actually a really, really good question. So on the one hand, I support FDA regulation to make sure that substances are safe. But on the other hand, the way the FDA is run right now is so massively corrupt that they're not doing the job that they're supposed to be doing, regulating to keep medicine safe. Oftentimes what they're doing is they're keeping certain medicines that work from the market because they're bought by big pharma. And so they're doing the bidding of big pharma and selling their or allowing their inferior medicine to keep a stranglehold on the marketplace. So the answer is you need total reform at the FDA from the top down to stop the corporate takeover of our government and make it so that they go back to their original purpose, which is to make sure that food and drugs are safe. So as of right now, yes, I would allow you to bypass legally for sure. But when we get the FDA running the way it should run, then no, you'll be able to get your medicine in the US and you won't have the FDA being your enemy. You'll have them being your ally just to make sure that your drugs are safe. Is there a chance in the future to see you on Seth Andrews' show? I don't know who that is. I'm sorry. I don't know. You know, YouTube is, I guess he's a YouTuber. YouTube is such a fucking giant thing that I don't know people who are significantly more famous than me. So it's funny the way that works. Okay, I'm trying here, guys, to keep up. I apologize if I end up missing anybody's question. What do you think of Sam Seder being bitchy about Jimmy Dore and his appearance on Rogan? You know, Jimmy Dore's a friend of mine. Him and I talk pretty often. And I love Jimmy. Sam Seder, I love when Sam Seder goes after right-wingers. Like, I love all of his shit on Mike Cernovich, all of his shit on the idiots on Fox News, all of his shit on, you know, whatever, Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, Bill O'Reilly. Whenever he goes after the right, I love his stuff. But yeah, I don't think he's being charitable in his reading of Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore is all he cares about is policy. All he cares about is Medicare for all and free college and a living wage and a new deal. And the fact that Sam Seder constantly goes after Jimmy because of stuff that's not policy related is like, don't you have something better to be doing than to act like a dick towards somebody who he disagrees with Jimmy big time on voting tactics. So, you know, Sam Seder would argue, no, in the general election, you vote for the lesser of two evils. You suck it up and vote for the lesser of two evils. And Jimmy Dore says, no, fuck that. The lesser of two evils is still evil. So I'm not going to do that. And so Sam, that's, I think, the core of why Sam Seder's been going after Jimmy Dore. On that point, I think I'm in the middle of both of them. I voted for Jill Stein, but as I said to you guys repeatedly, I only voted for her because I'm in New York. If I was in fucking Ohio or some swing state, I would have forced myself and sucked it up and voted for Hillary as I vomited and fucking shit myself and cried because, you know, I agree with Noam Chomsky's analysis, which is she is the lesser evil. And at the end of the day, when you had no choice, if you're in a swing state, okay, go do it. But so I see where both of them are coming from on that point. But overall in that feud, I lean more towards Jimmy Dore because he's my friend, but that's not really the real reason I lean towards him. I lean towards him because I think Jimmy's hyper-focused on policy, and Sam Seder doesn't think that's the case or just acts like that's not the case and then berates Jimmy about other stuff, which I think is kind of petty and kind of douchey. And yeah, that's my general take. I like it when Sam Seder goes after right-wingers. I don't like it when he left punches. And Jimmy Dore, though I agree with him on some things, of course, I think he's mostly focused on policy and he's a great guy. So he gets a really uncharitable reading from Sam Seder, and I think it's kind of unfair. Okay. Huge fan for years. You inspired my 19-year-old lazy ass to think about becoming a JD. When do you go on JRE, and how long are you going on for? I'll be on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, and I think it's 3 hours. I think I'll be talking to him for about 3 hours. And that's great if you were thinking about getting involved in Justice Democrats. That's wonderful. All the candidates I support. There's not a single candidate I don't support, and they're all populist left, and they're all fighting for all the policy changes that we need in this country. So I love to hear that, Sam. Thank you. Hey, Kyle, I'm a transgender university freshman at Ohio University who is studying computer science. I'm really interested in politics and getting money out of politics. What would you, I think, suggest I do if I wish to enter office? I am now a citizen but I was born in Canada. You're a citizen now, but you were born in Canada. Well, I know you can't run for president then. Unless your mom is an American, then you would be able to run. If you came out of an American vagina, then you can run. But if you didn't come out of an American vagina and you were born in Canada, you can't run for president. But if you want to get involved in politics, start at the ground up. You know, donate to campaigns, give your time and canvas for campaigns. You could, again, start with Justice Democrats and see who needs help over there and who in your area is a Justice Democrat. And to get money out of politics, you could do Move to Amend, look up Move to Amend, Represent.us, and Wolfpack. Those are three great groups that are working on getting money out of politics. They're using three different approaches, but you can look, and whichever approach you like the best is the approach you should take. When will you be on Warski Live? Never. Fuck that guy. Jerkimer James, you rock. Keep truth alive. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Alex, your thoughts on the Poland-Israel conflict in the media? Some in Israel pushing that Poland did the Holocaust. What the fuck? I don't know about what's happening in the media with Israel and Poland, but that sounds fucking crazy if I don't say so myself. Will you be on any other shows while you're in LA? Yes, I'll be on Jimmy Dore show. I don't know if it's playing live, though. I don't think it's playing live. I think the clips will be uploaded afterwards. Hi, Kyle. Love your work. Keep it up. Well, thank you, Pat. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm still trying to... I know I missed some, but I'm trying to go back to them. Hey, Kyle. In the debate with Razorfist, he mentioned that Canada illegalized private healthcare options. I don't think they did. You said you didn't support that. If Medicare for all is $32 trillion and our system is $49 trillion, would having private option affect that cost? I don't know. The article didn't specify. The article on that didn't specify which kind of single-payer system they were referring to. When they said it would save $17 trillion, I would imagine any version of single-payer would save trillions of dollars. But to get to the broader point, I don't think Razorfist is right. I think Canada, they do have supplemental private care if you want it. I could be wrong about that, but I think they have supplemental private care. There are some single-payer systems that do not have the option of getting supplemental private care. But I think most single-payer systems, they do give you the option if you want to go the private road. So you get the regular insurance that anybody would get just by virtue of being a citizen, free healthcare, but then you could also go further and get something on the private sector if you want. And by the way, I'm not in favor of banning that. Like, I'm not in favor of banning supplemental care. You should be able to go to a private doctor if you want, but the baseline should be a Medicare for all system. If Bernie Sanders comes out when you talk to Rogan, can you ask why he always brings up the number of houses he has and how his wife fucked up on that one college all the time? Pretty please. Yes, if he brings up Bernie and he mentions those things, I'll be like, that. Those things are not relevant. Like, that's not a gotcha. Like, oh, you have houses? You have 2 houses or 3 houses or whatever the fuck he has? He's still one of the poorest members of fucking the Senate. And even if he wasn't, you're allowed to fight for the working class, even if it's not like, oh, once you have a net worth of over 500,000 or whatever, pull out a random number, you're not allowed to fucking care about people. So that's always been a goofy thing. And the thing about the college was it's just a smear from the establishment. That's all that is. Would love to hear your thoughts on any of the candidates running in Iowa for the next election. I would love to give you my thoughts, but I don't know who's running in Iowa. I agree with getting money out of politics, but how exactly could we fund every election and determine which candidate gets how much money? Show rocks. Thanks, George, and that's a good question. So there's various proposals for a clean election system. That's what this would be called if you get private money out of politics, clean elections. And one of the proposals, for example, is everybody gets a $200 tax credit, and you get to determine who you're going to donate that money to politically. So you have $200 to spend at your will, and you get to give it to whoever you want to give it to in the political scene. That's one proposal. So you ban all private donations, everybody gets a public tax credit, and then you determine what you want to do with that $200. Or we could have a debate about how much you want to give each person. You could do 100, you could do 300, or whatever the case is. But that's one proposal. Hey, Kyle, I'm also a student from Ohio University, so shout out to the Bobcats. what do you think of Dennis Kucinich, our revolution guy running for Ohio governor? Yeah, I like Dennis Kucinich. He's a little bit goofy in some ways. Like, wasn't he the guy with aliens? He thought there were aliens or some shit he saw. So I hope he shuts the fuck up about aliens and just talks about policy, because when he talks about policy, he's a rock star. So I do support Dennis Kucinich. Hey, Kyle, love the show and excited to see you on Joe Rogan. Also, would you consider doing a meetup while in LA? Unfortunately, I'm not going to be there very long. I'm literally there for, TYT, Jimmy Dore, Rogan, gone. So I'm not there for that long. And even with that short stay, I don't have enough time to even do a show next week. So sorry about that, guys. Would love to hear your thoughts on any of the candidates running in Iowa. Already did that one. Kyle, what would you think Christopher Hitchens would say about Trump? I think he'd hate him. I think he'd call him an idiot. Now, Christopher Hitchens was notoriously hard on Hillary Clinton, I think rightfully so. So he would have hated the 2016 election because both the candidates suck balls. But he would have been right in hating the 2016 election. And by the way, I should be clear and say I'm not even the biggest fan of Christopher Hitchens. Of the new atheist writers, he's my least favorite. My favorite is Richard Dawkins. Second favorite is Sam Harris. Third is Christopher Hitchens. And it's nothing against Christopher Hitchens. It's just that his writing style, it didn't click with me as much as Dawkins' writing style did. Seeing as most of the people who join the military do so for the benefits, do you think the reason we still don't have free national health care at college is because it disincentivizes enlistment? Christian, that's a good fucking point, man, and it's one I never thought of. That's certainly possible. Sorry, guys. I feel like I missed some, and then I try to go back, and then when I go back, the ones I was going to answer are gone, and so I'm just trying to keep up here. Whenever the next market depression happens, do you think you will become more left-wing economically? No, I mean, listen, I'm always open to changing my mind with new evidence and great arguments. So I'm always open to moving in either direction based on the evidence. But I think I have a decent grasp of the economy, and I have a decent grasp of society, and I have some ideas that you could disagree with them, but I like to think my ideas are well thought out. So I don't know. Are you asking if I'm going to become like a Marxist or something after the next crash? I don't think so. Nor will I become a fucking goofy libertarian anarcho-capitalist either. I think that all the evidence that currently exists in the world is that social democracy is the best. It just creates the best system, the happiest people, best healthcare systems, strongest middle class. It just gives more people a good opportunity, and it's kind of a meritocracy at the same time that you have a good social safety net. So I just happen to like those systems and I think that the evidence backs me up on that. Do you have any opinion for Daniel Biss for Illinois governor? He is a progressive. The other two guys are both billionaires and are basically Clinton versus Trump. So, Michael, I don't have any thoughts on that because I don't know exactly what's going on in the Illinois governor's race. But if your summation is accurate, then I would prefer Daniel Biss. I think Jimmy Dore has been proven right. Will all the activism take place on the left since Trump's victory? As a co-founder, would you have started the Justice Democrats had Hillary won? That's a great question, Fernando. The answer is yes. We would have done something because we were so sick and tired of neoliberals and neocons, far-right people and center-right people. Those are your options in the U.S., far-right and center-right in Washington. Those are your options. And meanwhile, the people are pretty solidly left-wing. They're populist left-wingers. So that's my one disagreement with Jimmy Dore is, well, that's not fair. I'm sure I have some other disagreements with him, but I don't agree with the backlash theory. So in other words, if Trump wins, boom, that leads to the left kind of getting their shit together and sweeping, and then the Democratic Party becoming what it should have been all along, which is a social democratic party, an uncorrupted party. My take on the 2016 election is that it's a lose-lose. It was a lose-lose. There was no winning. There's just no winning. Obviously, if Bernie won, that would have been a win, but I'm talking about once we're in the general election. Because if Trump wins, he's going to drag the spectrum further to the right, and we're going to have an insane George Bush-like presidency, which is what we're seeing with Donald Trump. And if Hillary won, you would have had the Democratic Party remaining a party of gradualism and incrementalism and neoliberalism and corporatism, the same as it was under Obama. So it was a lose-lose. That's what it was. And I think people who believe in the backlash theory, they overestimate the ability of the Democrats to self-correct. The Democrats don't self-correct. They don't. Whenever a Republican drags the spectrum to the right, the Democrats follow and go further to the right. So the notion of the backlash theory is, no, Trump gets elected and then the left goes, fuck this, we're going to go further left and get our shit together. But in my opinion, that doesn't really happen. What happens is Democrats run to the right to catch up to the Republicans. So that's a little disagreement that I have with Jimmy Dore. But yeah, I would have tried to do something either way. So we did something when Trump won. If Hillary had won, we would have done something as well. What would you recommend me running for if I run? I'm 19, live in Ohio. The minimum age to run is 18, and I want to run for either governor or senator as a JD. Which would be more effective? Well, Sam, I got some bad news for you, man. Justice Democrats only does national elections. They don't do state elections. So neither way can you be a JD. But you can run as a progressive. You can run as somebody on the left for sure. And you run for whatever you feel you want to do. I mean, I think you probably have a better chance if you run as a state senator. That's what you're asking, state senator, right? Then if you run for governor, maybe save governor for later on. But yeah, running as a state senator at the state level in Ohio would be a good idea. If the next market crash happens, do you think it's possible that the U.S. descends into a civil war? No, I don't. And the reason is we have too many distractions. We have the internet, we have Netflix, we have TV. So we're getting fucked 1,000 ways to Sunday, but there's enough shit distracting us where we just wallow in our misery as opposed to taking up guns and shooting each other in the street. But I do think that you will have giant social instability, without a doubt. And I think that the U.S. is on the brink, if not already teetering, leaning towards fascism. And our options were going to be either that or democratic socialism. And that's why this 2020 election is very important. Hopefully we can get Bernie Sanders in there. Would you consider running for office? Yes, but don't take that as I am running for office. Because I like what I do, and running for office is a pain in the ass. So the answer is yes, I would consider it, but that's not a yes. It's not a yes that I'm going to run. It's a yes that I will consider it in the future. Only if I feel like I absolutely have to. Like Dylan Ratigan just did that. Dylan Ratigan is now running in New York's 21st district, which is upstate New York. And his reasoning was, I felt like I fucking had to. I was so pissed looking at what was happening. So I just felt compelled and like I don't have a choice. If I ever run, that will be the reason I run, because I don't really want to do it because I like what I do. Hey, glad to see you coming around on Trudeau. Coming around on him, what? During your video when he was elected, did you know about his position on TPP and the Anti-Terrorism Act? I think I knew his position on TPP. He just strikes me as an Obama-like character. And in the case of Trudeau, he's actually more goofy than Obama, because Obama had some wherewithal and self-perception. Trudeau is just fucking like all the pictures coming out recently where he did a trip to India and he dresses like a traditional Indian and he like does the fucking like, oh, I'm so cultured, look at me. Like, no, douchebag. He's just, I don't know, he's just goofy. He's just goofy, and he's a fucking neoliberal, and he pretends like he's more radical and leftist than you because he says shit like people kind. To be fair to him, a lot of people are arguing, no, he was joking when he said people kind, because the woman who he was talking to was, kind of mired in identity politics. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. If he was joking, okay, whatever, give him a pass. If he's not joking and he really said people kind and he objected to mankind, fuck that guy. Because that's the kind of identity politics that ruins the left and turns regular people off to the left because they go, this is what you fucking care about, you idiots? This is what you care about. Fucking over 60 genders on Facebook or whatever, and, identity politics obsessed bullshit. Meanwhile, people don't even make a living wage. Meanwhile, jobs are being outsourced like crazy, and we got a zillion wars going on, and people are arming Saudi Arabia, including Justin Trudeau. He armed Saudi Arabia to the teeth. So that's the shit that pisses me off, is the fake radicalism. Like, look at me, I'm so radical because I'm dressed like an Indian guy. Fuck off, douchebag. Would you consider improving a secular talk site so you can dictate the way people could absorb videos and have videos that relate in a comprehensive educational way? Billy, that's a good question. The answer is, I'm primarily a YouTuber. That's what I am. So the medium through which I connect with everybody and talk to everybody and where I get my biggest audience is YouTube. The site was an afterthought. It remains an afterthought. So the answer is no for now. Maybe it's possible that in a few years I go, you know what? No, I want to make the Secular Talk site the main hub and not the YouTube page. I could try that, but that's a tremendous shift because I know, for example, that TYT wanted to do that with their webpage and they weren't able to do it. And they have an audience of 3 million. I have an audience of 500,000. So, they, with all those followers, couldn't make the switch to make that their people's primary place to go. What hope do I have? So I like being a YouTuber, and that's where the main focus is. With the mention of the stock market, what do you think will happen to it when the Bitcoin bubble finally bursts? So with Bitcoin, they've had their ups and downs. I mean, there's been a bunch of headlines about, hey, there was fraud that happened here. And, there's been problems, let's say, just to keep it brief and pithy. There's been problems with Bitcoin, and it has been going up and down a lot. I think it's just going to keep going like that. I'm not really bullish on Bitcoin, and I'm not really bearish on it. I think it's just another investment. And if you got in early, it really fucking worked out because it really went up a lot from where it was originally. But I think it'll kind of keep going up and down. It's never going to fully replace money, but it's just another investment. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Bitcoin. Hey, Kyle, love the show. I'm not sure what your knowledge of the Pennsylvania gerrymandering situation is, but do you think that it is okay that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court usurping the legislature is bad legal precedent? So it depends what the decision was. I think the decision was that they're going to create an independent board to draw the districts. I don't think that's them usurping the legislature. I think that's them holding the legislature accountable. So if that's what the decision was, hey, we're going to try to draw the districts in a way that's reasonable, then yeah, I agree with that. Because if you leave it to the legislature, then if Democrats are in control, they're going to jerry-rig it and gerrymander it in their favor. If Republicans are in control, they're going to gerrymander it in their favor. So, that's stupid and dumb and wrong, and they should fucking ban gerrymandering and have an independent council do it across the country. So I would agree with the court. May I take you out for a beer when you come to LA on the 27th? Again, probably not going to have time, but I appreciate the offer. That's very sweet of you to ask. Kyle, Hispanic fan, I learned more about politics in your show than school. Within the next 5 years, I'll be running for president in Bolivia. Taking Bernie's message there. Keep the good work. What the fuck? That's an awesome message. I hope all that's true because that's really fucking cool. Grover says that. Grover Capriez. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Grover. That's fucking awesome. I'll look for your name. You hear Sam Harris say a few days ago you made him the angriest he's been. What? What? Sam Harris said that? Why did I make him angry? I didn't make him angry. Sam, what did I do to you, man? I just tried to have a conversation with you. It's funny because, I don't know, in that conversation with Sam Harris, I think he went into it thinking I was going to be really standoffish with him, and so he was standoffish. But no, I was just trying to have a conversation with you, Sam, so I don't know. And he apologized to me after, to his credit. He was like, I'm sorry for the interview where I kind of railroaded Kyle, yada, yada, yada. And I was fine with it. I mean, I wish we could have dug a little deeper into the issues and the conversation not been so one-sided. But I'm surprised to hear this. Is this true that Sam Harris said a few days ago I made him the angriest he's been? I don't know why or how. Send me the link if you can, because I'm really stunned by that. Hey, Kyle, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but as a European, I cannot access Secular Talk Radio website. It only redirects to Yahoo. Yeah, listen, like I said, there's been massive issues, giant fucking cyber attacks and all that shit. So we're primarily a YouTube channel, and that's kind of like an afterthought, the website. And that's why it's limited access because there's been so many fucking attacks on the website. Hi, Kyle. I love the show. I'm a patron. I want to thank you for giving this poor single mom hope for the future and her kids. Please ask Joe Rogan to have Kana and Radigan on the show. Fuck yeah. Madeline, that's a great, great point. Yes, I need to remember that. I need to talk about Ro Khanna. I need to talk about Dylan Radigan. And I need to talk about Thomas Frank, who Jimmy brought up on the podcast with Joe Rogan. And thank you for the compliment. Kyle, Sargon made a recent video on Venezuela smearing socialism and democratic socialism. Could you comment on this, please? Thanks for what you do. Yeah, I'll comment on that right now. There's nothing I despise more than the lazy ass arguments where people try to say socialism is bad and then they bring up the Soviet Union or Cuba or Venezuela. That's called effectively straw manning democratic socialists in the United States. Because people who are social democrats or democratic socialists, if you talk to them, they'll go, I like Norway. I like Denmark. I like Iceland. I like Sweden. I like aspects of Canada and Australia. So that's if Sargon did a video talking about that and attacking that position, okay, then you're steel manning your opponent and trying to disagree. That's fair enough. But when you do the, oh my God, socialism's so evil, look at Venezuela, what you're doing is you're taking just the absolute caricature and most extreme version of those systems and going after it. You know, that's like us. We can turn around and say, oh yeah, free market. You like a free market, huh? You like libertarianism. Well, Somalia is a piece of shit country now, isn't it? No centralized government. I mean, this is what we're talking about here. That's supposed to be a libertarian's paradise. Guns everywhere. The only thing they wouldn't like is that there's black people there, of course. Not Sargon, I'm saying conservatives in general. But like, it's so easy to just say, oh, look at the absolute worst example on that side. And let's pretend like people who say they believe in libertarianism all believe in that kind of a system. And then let's argue against that. That's just silly. You're not having an actual conversation. It's mental masturbation if you do that. You want to have a conversation and talk about how you disagree with democratic socialism or social democracy? Talk about Norway, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, Finland, Greenland, some aspects of Canada and Australia. Talk about that. But you can't talk about that because those countries are fucking wonderful. They're objectively measured to be the best countries on earth. They have rigorous studies that look into this, and they take quality of life and happiness and vacation time and wages and all that. And at the end of the day, Denmark and Norway are the happiest countries on earth. So, and I know the right-wingers then they go, well, that's because of the lack of diversity. Nonsense. Utter nonsense. So, for example, Canada has a wonderful healthcare system, and they have a very diverse population. Of course, it's possible to have a diverse society and also have a thriving society and a social democratic society. So that's goofy. It's just goofy to fucking, all people who are democratic socialists or social democrats, like Venezuela. Now let me attack Venezuela. Well, I'm a social democrat and I don't like it. And so you're bashing a fucking straw man and acting like everybody on the other side of the spectrum are so, misguided and wrong that they love Venezuela. And also, final point on this is the operative problem in a place like Venezuela or Cuba is authoritarianism. It's not the socialism angle that's the problem. It's the authoritarianism. And it was actually Sargon that changed my mind on this. Because I used to say, he brought up Stalin, and I was like, well, Stalin was kind of right-wing. And he's like, no, he's not right-wing. He's authoritarian left. And then I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? He's right. Because he's using the quadrant political spectrum. And so you have authoritarian right-wing, that would be fascism. Libertarian right-wing, that would be like Ron Paul, anarcho-capitalism. Authoritarian left-wing, that would be communism. And then libertarian left-wing, that would be like anarcho-syndicalism, social democracy, and stuff like that. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what, Sargon, you're right. If I say Stalin's right-wing, then all I'm saying is anybody who was a monster who I don't like is by definition right-wing. That's not true. Stalin was definitely left-wing, but he was authoritarian left-wing. And the problem with him was not his leftism, it was the authoritarianism. It was the fact that he fucking murdered people and he took all the property and nationalized it and people fucking starved to death. That was the problem. So, yeah, you're arguing against authoritarian countries and acting like the authoritarianism is why they're bad. Or excuse me, you're acting like the social democracy or democratic socialism is why they're bad. No, that's not why they're bad. Why they're bad is authoritarianism. Okay, sorry, that was a long answer, guys. Sargon said black people need to get married to solve their economic problems. How do I combat that argument? You laugh. And I don't know that he said that, to be fair. I have no idea, because that doesn't sound like something he'd say. That sounds like a really dumb Fox News argument. Follow-up, the current map got struck down. The Pennsylvania GOP submitted a map. Governor Wolf vetoed it. Then they got a Stanford professor to draw the maps. They are better now. Okay, thank you, Garrett. The Dems are too far gone institutionally and politically. I was deep in it, burner, in California, and seen it. People are moving on and away from the Dems. Don't mean to burst bubbles, but real progressives will get backstabbed again. So, Abel, here's the one problem with that argument. First of all, I agree with most of what you're saying. It is true. The Democrats keep stabbing us in the back. There's no denying that. And it's unacceptable, and we need to fight back against it. The problem with what you're advocating is you want people to have less power. Now, you might say, well, Kyle, that's not fair. That's not what I'm saying. But the effects of what you're arguing, the consequences, are exactly that. Because what you're talking about is, okay, everybody get out of the Democratic Party. Then here's my question for you. What next? What next? The Green Party isn't even on every ballot. So the most logical thing would be, okay, get out of the Democratic Party and go to the Green Party. But the Green Party isn't even on every ballot. Never mind other third parties. So if you want to start a new third party from scratch, by all means, be my guest. But guess what? The system is rigged against you. If you're in a third party, the system is rigged against you. It's not even close. The system is 100% rigged against you. You're not going to get ballot access. You're not going to get any coverage. You're not going to get any momentum because of the fact that the system is rigged against you. So when you say something like that, and you're implying we all got to leave the Democrats, what you're saying is everybody get out of the Democratic Party and then somehow it'll magically work out. But I know, because we did this with Justice Democrats. We considered a third party, but we knew we would have gotten our ass handed to us if we went the third party route because it was rigged against us. So you have to unrig the system first, and then you get your third party. But if you don't unrig the system first, then you're being a useful idiot of the establishment. Because, for example, I live in New York. Let's say I took your advice. We're done with the Democrats, totally done with the Democrats. Let's say I unregister as a Democrat. Well, guess what? When Bernie runs in the Democratic primary in 2020, I won't be able to vote for him. I won't be able to vote for him. So the most important thing I needed to do, which is vote in the primary to support the progressive, I now can't do it because I decided I'm going to get out of the Democratic Party and that's it. Well, okay, I just gave away whatever little power I had in this system and sacrificed it at the altar of ideological purity. But in reality, it was massively counterproductive. So here's the point you're right about. The Democrats keep stabbing us in the back, and they're a fucking problem, and we need to fight them tooth and nail and not allow them to do that anymore. But the answer is not unilateral disarmament from within the party. The answer is you fight them from within the party and you fight them from outside of the party. You have to have an all of the above approach. If you don't have an all of the above approach, you're being a useful idiot of the establishment. Okay? You have to have an all of the above approach. If you're telling people to unregister as Democrats in, states where there's closed primaries, you're fucking wrong. You're fucking wrong, because then they're not going to be able to vote for Bernie in 2020 or whatever progressive may be running, whether it's Tulsi Gabbard or whoever. Okay. So stop. Don't do that. That's just stupid is what it is. But you're right on the broader point. The broader point is the Democrats are fucked up. The Democrats are terrible. And, we have to defeat them. But my plan is you defeat them from within the party. You fight back within the party. And you also make alliances from outside of the party. And you also work, Democratic Socialists outside of the party, Green Party outside of the party, Independents outside of the party, but also Democrats from within the party. You don't want to unilaterally disarm within the party because that's the worst case scenario. Okay, what people fail to realize is that socialism and communism is a multifaceted, nuanced system. Ideologies can't be generalized under a monolithic misnomer. Luke, that is correct. I'd like to fuck this lesbian softball coach Seltzer's sellout's ass all day long, and I'm pretty sure he'd like it. Sargon of Akkad. Sargon, I know you didn't say that, man. Don't worry. It's all good. What do you think of Devin Tracy? He entertains me. I have to admit it. Listen, there are people who might not like me admitting that, but I'm going to admit it. I kind of like him. Like, he's entertaining. I agree with him on probably 60% of stuff, but he's entertaining. The reason Nordic countries' social democracies work is because they are in NATO and have historical, geographical, and trade advantages that are unique to them and former British Empire countries. This cannot work for other countries in other contexts. That's mighty fucking convenient now, isn't it? That, oh yeah, the countries that work the best, they can't work elsewhere because of reasons and things. Not sure I buy that. I'm going to press you on your time in LA. You sure you don't have 2 hours to spare? It'd be worth your limited time. I'm pretty sure. But again, thank you very much. That's very sweet of anybody who would like to see me. Kyle, please route the audio directly instead of having the room mic capture in your videos. It's much more clear that way. So Dave, thank you for bringing that up. That's something I wanted to talk about. I got plenty of feedback on the new studio. And it seems to me like the best course of action going forward is there's a few things I have to do. Number one, I need to be brighter. We're working on that. We're going to get that done. Number two, the light, the new studio light is a little too bright. So, and specifically the microphone part is too bright. So there's now a filter over that microphone. So the microphone is not bright white now. It's yellow and it's easier on the eyes. So that's a good thing too. And then the third thing is people are saying they liked it better the other way with the video. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to go back to the other way with the video, but the monitor over my shoulder is now going to be used for pictures of what I'm talking about. So if I'm doing a story about Trump, Trump might be over my shoulder on that monitor, a picture of Trump. If I'm talking about Bernie, it might be Bernie. If I'm talking about the minimum wage, it might be a picture of a few dollars and cents or whatever. So that's what we're going to do. It's kind of like a mix of the best of both worlds. You'll get the video back the way it was. You'll get that screen still being useful in that it'll show pictures, and I will get brighter. So I've been working on that studio setup. Will you debate Jordan Peterson? Jonathan, I've been trying to have a conversation with Jordan Peterson, but he hasn't responded. I tried through Twitter. He didn't hear back from me, even though the fucking tweet got like over 1,000 likes and hundreds of retweets. So I know he saw it. He just didn't fucking respond, which fair enough. I get it. He doesn't have to. I'm sure people have solicited me on Twitter and I haven't seen it or saw it and was too busy or whatever. So I'm not going after him for that. But I even went through the official channel. I emailed his whoever agent or whatever the fuck, and I didn't hear back. So maybe when I'm done with the conversation with Joe Rogan, I'll mention to Joe Rogan about Jordan Peterson, see if he could hook it up, because I want to have a conversation with Jordan Peterson. Please love me. Space Time, I love you. Will the Dem leadership compromise DACA for the $300 million they are asking for? I understand what you say. Keep questioning and digging for the truth. I will do that. The Democrats have already repeatedly sold out the Dreamers, so I do not put it by them to keep selling out the Dreamers. If Bernie wins, will he be fair to the Palestinians, or will he allow Israel to continue violating international law? Robert, that's a great question. The answer is he will be better on the issue of Israel than any other president, but he still will not be good. That's the answer. I think Bernie will force Israel to make many more concessions than any other president would. But I think ultimately you're still going to have occupation. And it's sad to say that, but that's the reality. You know, even the best US politician is somebody who's still anti-BDS. And that's fucking frustrating, man. And, you know, he's even kind of apologetic about Obama's drone war. He was like, yeah, you know, I kind of see you have to do something, yada, yada. So it's a shame, but he's unfortunately, you know, the best we got. Okay, I sent you a video with laugh tracks and shit over them a few years ago. What do you think will be the defining downturn of the conservative movement? I don't know. I mean, I feel like everything ebbs and flows, you know, and it's annoying, but I think that's true. That Ben Shapiro is a great example of this. There was a time when he was a nobody. He was a gnat, and then now he's got a huge following. Steven Crowder, same thing. He's got very passionate followers. And it's like, well, these guys are so silly and ridiculous that there was a time when they were just laughable and they didn't even have that big of an online presence. Now they have a presence for sure. So I think there's a little bit of an ebb and flow that happens with politics in terms of the movements and which ones pick up steam and which ones, you know, lose power. And I don't think there's going to be an ultimate downfall of the right, unfortunately, because they've already been acting like fucking pirates since the 1980s, probably earlier than that, and they're still in power. So the Democrats need to get their shit together to give an alternative, because when people are given a choice of Republican or Republican light, they always pick Republican. But if you give people the choice of Republican or populist left, what the Democrats should be, then they'd pick populist left. What is your take on the fact that in a country that is pretty progressive like Sweden, there can be no major party that supports legalization of weed, not even one that supports decriminalized? Wow, I didn't know that. I'm surprised by that. Somebody should get working on that, because I would imagine that Sweden would already have been there at legalization, or at least having the debate. So that's stunning. I don't even know how to respond to that. they should start working on that immediately. And there should be people, voices, prominent voices, fighting for the freedom to put in your body whatever you want to put in your body. Hey, Kyle, I've been listening to your show since 17. Now I'm 20. I'm excited about you going on JRE as I am about Avengers Infinity War. Silly question. Any advice on getting my crush to like me? That's a good question. You know, when I was younger, I probably would have given you the typical douchebag advice, which is like, bro, just don't give her that much attention and then she'll go fucking crazy for you, bro. You just treat him like shit and then it'll, they'll love you. But now that I'm an adult, I think it's just a matter of being yourself, man. I think so. There's two things that have to happen. Number one, you have to be yourself and treat her like a human being. And number two, you have to also have your time mostly focused on what you're doing. So in other words, you should have a hobby or have a job that you get to throw yourself into and really, you find meaning and fulfillment through what you do. Again, whether it's a hobby or a job or what have you, or, intellectual pursuits, reading, whatever the case may be. But you need to have something that you can throw yourself in hard at, where you get meaning and fulfillment through this thing that you do. And then if you have your ducks in a row in that sense, then you'll find that talking to other people and making connections and kind of being normal just kind of happens, See, if you don't have your own thing going, but you want to like talk to a girl or something, you might fuck it up because you feel weird. You feel like there's too much riding on it because it means so much to you and you have nothing else going on. So you have to get your own ducks in a row and get your own house in order and care about stuff and work on stuff and get fulfillment elsewhere. And then those human relationships can flourish. And then you'll get to know her as a person and she'll get to know you as a person. So that's my advice on that. It's a little weird and unorthodox, but that's my belief on that front. Kyle, what are your thoughts on AR-15s being legal in 14 first world countries, including France, Germany, Italy, Canada, New Zealand, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Belgium, Finland, and more? Well, my gut reaction reading that is I have no idea if that's true. So I can't comment. But as a general rule, and we've been over these statistics before 1,000 times, countries that have stricter gun control have fewer gun deaths. That's just a fact. Now, that doesn't mean you ban guns. Like, for example, Japan has basically banned guns, and they have 6 gun deaths a year. Listen, that's the effect of banning guns. If you're going to ban guns, there's going to be fewer guns in circulation. Fewer people are going to get shot and killed by guns. It is what it is. But me, I'm not, even though that's the case, you have to balance how much you value freedom in there as well. And for me, when it comes to guns and when it comes to drugs, I believe in basically the same position, which is they should be legal, taxed, and regulated. Now, again, a lot hinges on that last word. How do you regulate? Well, in the case of guns, I would argue that we should definitely have a ban on high-capacity magazines. We should definitely have universal background checks with strict standards. And we should treat guns like they're cars, basically, and have some sort of a test and a process to go through that disincentivizes bad people from getting guns. Now, this is where people say, well, yeah, but bad people are not going to follow the law anyway. But the idea is you will stop many of them from getting a gun. You're never going to stop all of them from getting a gun. Yes, some bad people will illegally get guns, but some won't be able to because they don't have the connections to somebody on the black market to get them the fucking gun. Especially the socially awkward people who end up doing these shootings. They don't have the social skills to be able to work something, to slap something together to get a gun on the black market. Many of these instances, those people would be disincentivized, and many people who would have done a mass shooting won't be able to get their hands on a gun. So the question is, where do you draw the line? We all agree that regular people shouldn't have nuclear weapons or chemical weapons or tanks or RPGs. So then where do you draw the line? You're already saying you believe in weapon control if you say, yeah, of course people shouldn't have nukes. So then where do you draw the line? That's the conversation we're having. Okay. What are your opinions of the U.S. drinking age? I'm of the opinion that the legal age for everything should be 16. I don't agree with the fucking tweaking of it should be 21 for driving or whatever the fuck, or 21 for drinking, but 18 for tobacco. Like, no, just draw the line clean. whatever it may be, we could have a disagreement as to where that line could be. Some people might say they think should be 15. Some people might say they think everything should be 21. My opinion is that at the age of 16, that's when you should be considered an adult in the eyes of the law. I just got fucking hair in my mouth, which is disgusting. Ugh, it's like an eyelash of mine. That's gross. An older documentary recommendation smothered about the Smothers Brothers battle with censors of the establishment media in the days of 3 TV stations. It was made in the early 2000s, but so many parallels to today. Yeah, who's the other guy? So you're talking about the Smothers Brothers. Fuck, I'm blanking on the guy's name. Lenny Bruce, is it? A lot of early comedians had to win free speech battles. I think George Carlin had to fight and win some free speech battles. And those guys are really heroes and pioneers, because if it wasn't for those stand-up comedians fighting back against a system that did try to censor them when they were making sexual jokes and shit, then you wouldn't have not only modern day comedians like we have now, but also YouTubers like me who fucking curse all the time and say lewd shit and talk sexual stuff. And so those guys are really trailblazers. Hey, Kyle, 2 quick questions. What are the latest movies you've seen recently, and what are your favorite of all time? Love you, baby. Thank you, atheist cunt with a V. I love you too. Latest movies I've seen. I don't know. I never go to the movies. I'd like to change that, but I never go to the movies. As far as favorite movies of all time, I like the movie Tombstone. It was like 1993. Great movie. I love that movie. So always watch it when it's on TV. And I'm a real big Denzel Washington and Leonardo DiCaprio fan. So anything that has Leonardo DiCaprio in it, usually love it. And anything that has Denzel Washington in it, usually love it. I mean, there's a few with Denzel that are like, one about fucking Train or some shit. It's like, even you couldn't make that movie hot, Denzel. But every other one. I really like a movie called Crimson Tide is great. But what's the other one? Out of Time. There's a movie called Out of Time with Denzel Washington. It's kind of like a cheesy cop movie, but it was done really well, and I like it. Like, it had me on the edge of my seat, and it was interesting to me. So everybody watch Out of Time if you get the time. So yeah, I love anything with Leonardo DiCaprio, anything with Denzel Washington. And the movies I've seen recently, I don't really remember or know. I've been watching a lot of WWE Network old pay-per-views. Like, I've been watching some old WrestleManias recently. Yo, dog, love the show. The Russia Corbyn smear blew up in the right's face. Corbyn went up in the polls. I fucking love that. And Tory MP was forced to apologize and pay damages. Would it be possible to make a Russiagate recap video? Ooh, I don't know about that last part. I've been covering Russiagate like crazy, and it's already too much. It's like a video a day, probably. A video per show, I should say. I'm worn out by Russiagate, man. I really am. I don't know if I'll do a recap, but I'll certainly keep covering it as I move forward with all the news stories, because I have to, because there's very few people pushing back against all the overreaching and the bullshit. John Q, this is great. Somebody said that in the chat. John Q, great Denzel movie. Kyle, grow out your hair so you look like a sexy samurai. How would that make me look like a samurai? Do samurais all have long hair? I never knew that. I'm from Nebraska, and our asshole dollar store Lex Luthor action figure looking governor just invited the NRA to have their convention here. Also, a student got arrested for threats recently. Thoughts? It depends. If the threats were specific, yeah. Even though we have a free speech absolutist country, which I agree with 100%, you're not allowed to make direct threats of violence. So if you make a direct threat of violence, yeah, you should be arrested, and you will be. So that might be a good thing. I don't know the details of that story, though, to be fair. If it's just general douchey speech, then no, they should be allowed to get away with it. Lex Luthor action figure, that's funny. Give a good word on Rogan's show for deep fat fried TJ Kirk, Scotty Kirk, Paul's Egos news new podcast. Hilarious, informative, and advocates for freedom of speech and anti-authoritarianism when not trolling. Yeah, I'm a friend of TJ Kirk. I like TJ Kirk a lot. I like him and his brother and Paul's Ego, and yeah, so they're cool guys. They have my endorsement. And there's a video that will be released when I'm in LA. I did this long breakdown. There's some videos of Noam Chomsky basically debating moral relativists. and debating postmodernists. And I did like a philosophical video, which goes into Chomsky's debate with those people. And then I give you my take on moral relativism and postmodernism. And it's like a 50-minute long video or so. And that should be uploaded when I'm gone. And anyway, the reason I'm telling you this is because TJ Kirk said he's looking forward to seeing that video. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think TJ Kirk is a little bit of a moral relativist in that he doesn't think there's an objective right and wrong. That doesn't mean that he doesn't think there are things you shouldn't do. In fact, I'm sure he does. I'm sure he's against murder and fucking crazy shit. But I think he would argue that it's not objectively wrong to murder because nothing is objectively wrong. So anyway, TJ Kirk was looking forward to seeing that video. It'll be released while I'm in LA, and I hope you guys enjoy that too. Hey, Kyle, really appreciate how much you fight fuckery on the left and right. Any thoughts on getting Bill Gates to run for president in 2020? Yeah, no Bill Gates. No Bill Gates. No Bill Gates, no Mark Zuckerberg, no Oprah, no The Rock. Even though many of these people are, I guess, nice people on an individual level, I'm sure I'd get along with them if I met them and shit. Let's just stick to populist left politicians. You know, that's my whole thing. Give me Ro Khanna, give me Tulsi Gabbard, give me Bernie Sanders. If for whatever reason Bernie doesn't run, but Elizabeth Warren runs and she gets through the primary, I will suck it up and vote for Elizabeth Warren. So just give me a left-wing politician, a populist left politician. Don't give me this fucking Mark Cuban shit or Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg. Fuck them. Stay in your lane. They should stay in their lane, I mean. Mass shootings are tied to gun regulation, but more so a symptom of the terrible state of our mental health system. We need to make mental health more personal and move ARs to needing an FFL. Not sure what you're saying at the beginning of the comment there, but yeah, I agree there's a mental health problem, but the issue with that is Republicans always use that as a deflection. They go, oh, this is a mental health problem, not a gun problem, they'll say. Well, that's kind of misleading and bullshit. And then when they say it's a mental health problem, well, then why the fuck are you defunding Medicaid, which is what they're doing? They're cutting Medicaid. Trump just destroyed Obamacare with his executive orders. 3 million people lost their health care. So you can't say it's about mental health and then you fucking destroy the few things that are helping people with mental health, Medicaid and Obamacare. So it's just a dodge and it's obfuscation from the right on that point. But do I agree with you on this, on the substance of it? Sure. Yeah. We have a mental health problem. It should be the case that psychologists and psychiatrists are treated just like doctors are treated, medical doctors are treated in a Medicare for all system, in a single payer system. If you are feeling fucking nuts, you should be able to just go visit a psychologist that day, psychiatrist, and it should be free. I would have no problem with my tax money helping people when they're having a mental breakdown. I'd rather have my tax money go to that than go to fucking ExxonMobil for their profits, or go to big banks or Wall Street hedge funds, or go to the military-industrial complex as they bomb innocent people overseas nonstop. I'd much rather have my tax money go to actual healthcare, physical healthcare, but also mental healthcare. Why the fuck not? Why shouldn't we have a system that looks out for people's mental health? Hey, Girk, what's good? You looking fine, though, but for real. Would love to see another stream with you and Sargon on Corbyn, Trump, and foreign policy. Take it easy, soccer coach. Thank you, cunty cat. Connor says, I was wondering how a career in science would affect a campaign in national elections. What's with all the anti-intellectualism? I'm with you in thinking if stuff doesn't get better, then I should join the fight and run. Yeah, we definitely need more science-minded people to run for office, for sure. Yeah. I mean, think about climate change, man. Climate change we're in the middle of it now. It's no longer this thing that's going to happen at some, unknown future date. It's happening right the fuck now. We have an increase in droughts and wildfires and extreme weather events all over the place. And this was predicted. I think like 3 of the 4 warmest years were in the past 4 or 5 years, which is fucking wild. Cape Town, South Africa, they're going to run out of water. They just pushed the date back. It was supposed to be a few months in the future. Now it's like 3 months in the future or some shit, whatever it is. But they're going to run out of water. A major fucking city is going to run out of water. What the fuck? Really? This is happening? Well, I told you guys, there's going to be wars over water. There's going to be going to have giant economic consequences because you're going to have drought and famine in some places. Obviously, you're going to have sea level rise. The Middle East is going to be uninhabitable at a certain point when it's too fucking hot. That's other stories we've spoken about. Did you know that over the next 2 centuries, economists have calculated it's going to cost $43 trillion to fight climate change? $43 trillion. I mean, this is, and we have one side of the political spectrum doesn't even acknowledge that it's real. They say no, it's not real. It's a hoax. Something. Big science is doing a conspiracy here. It's not that big oil is, denying the reality to keep making money. It's that big science is a thing and is the problem, and they're conspiracy theorists. And so half the political spectrum doesn't even believe in it in the US, which is off the spectrum in world politics because conservatives in other countries believe in climate change. And the Democrats believe in it, but they go 1/100th as far as they need to go. So we're staring into the abyss at the moment. If I'm Russian and posted memes in favor of Bernie in 2016, am I now considered a criminal in the US? Wish we had our own politics here, though. It's sad. Have you guys seen that video yet of the old woman in CNN went to her house in Florida and was like, you were posting Russian-made memes. Did you know that? You were on a Facebook page called Being Patriotic that was pro-Trump, but a lot of the memes you shared were created by Russia. And they pester her for like 3 minutes. Like, really hard questions like, do you understand that you're a puppet of a hostile foreign power? And that's exactly what McCarthyism is. It's exactly what it is. Do you understand that you're helping the Russians? Do you know anybody who's Russian? Like, this is exactly what it is. And now, if you really are Russian and you posted memes in favor of Bernie, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an article that comes out at some point with your tweets and they go, Russian troll tries to influence the election. I mean, this is the level of absurdity that we're at the moment. Kyle, I sent you the links on Twitter under the same username. Okay, I'm guessing you're talking about the Ben Shapiro thing? Or the Sam Harris thing? I hope you're talking about the Sam Harris thing. I worry that if Bernie was elected, he wouldn't have the cutthroat mentality that we need in a progressive president in order to get the kind of change we need, especially with an establishment Democratic Congress. Thoughts? Yeah, Elijah, number one, that's an interesting point, but I do disagree with you. So here's the thing. Bernie Sanders would fight for us tooth and nail on most issues, for sure. But the problem is the later part of your question, the latter part, where you're like, oh, it's an establishment Democratic Congress and there are Republicans too. Yeah, they're going to be the problem. They're going to be the problem. It's going to be the establishment Democrats are going to be the problem and the Republicans are going to be the problem. So even if we get Bernie elected, he needs us. He needs us to scare the shit out of the establishment Democrats and the Republicans and make them think if you don't vote with Bernie, you're just going to get voted out and we're going to vote you out so fucking fast that you're going to go nuts. So I think he is going to fight for us, but he needs us so much. He needs us to keep the pressure on. So that's what I would say to that. I think he will fight for us, but he's up against a wall of resistance because the establishment is not going to give up easy. And just because you're the president doesn't mean you could do everything. He could do executive orders, which are great. He'll get some things accomplished, but he really needs us to keep up the pressure on the establishment Democrats and on the Republicans. It's kind of funny that Scandinavia is praised by progressives, well-earned praise, yet Sweden, Norway, Denmark are all monarchies. That is pretty funny. Perhaps that's what the U.S. needs to be a monarchy. Only joking. Yes, I'm glad that you're joking because that's the one that, well, it's not that there's only one aspect of those systems I disagree with, but that is one of the aspects I disagree with. I'd like it a lot more if they just move past that goofiness. Kyle, would you be up to have a tag team debate with Pacman against Dave Rubin and Sargon on the definition of classical liberalism? Pacman and Sargon are down. Please reply, faggot. I would be down to have a debate where it's me and David versus Sargon and Rubin. I'd be down for that for sure. But I think we'd have to work on what we're debating because just debating the definition of classical liberal seems silly to me. We should debate issues, not just the definition of something, because what a useless debate that would be, just to talk about our different interpretations of the definition of classical liberal. So yes, I'd be down for that discussion, but we should actually figure out a different and better topic to discuss. Hey Kyle, do you enjoy playing retro games in your free time? I don't, unfortunately, play many retro games in my free time, but No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000 are the best video games ever created. And those are N64 games, and they're wrestling games. And to this day, you go read the reviews, and virtually everybody agrees. They're like, yeah, WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy. Not even close. Best games ever. And so I'd love to play that. And I recently got on Xbox One for my birthday, WWE like 2K17 or some shit. And I read that there's a way where you can play WrestleMania 2000 on that with new characters, or you could play No Mercy with new characters. I need to figure out how to do that, because that I want to fucking do so bad. Because some of the best times I've ever had was playing WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy with my friend when we were younger. I'm trying to make sure I got all these ones, guys. Sent you links on Twitter. Wonder if career in science, transgender. By the way, thanks everybody. These super chats are fucking awesome. I have a lot of fun doing these. It's almost like a town hall. It's almost like I'm running for something and you guys ask me questions. Let's see. Hey Kyle, do you enjoy playing? Where did that retro games? As far as improving the site, why can't you keep making YouTube videos the same way, but have a site that has your lists of your YouTube videos that relate with sources and other info to back up your claims? I'd quit my job today to help you work on that. So in most of the videos I do, as if I'm referencing an article, the link is right in the video description box. So always look at the video description box if I'm discussing some sort of an article, because whenever it's necessary, I put the article there. When I don't do it is like if I'm doing a right wing watch video on Pat Robertson or something, you might see the Pat Robertson clip and then I don't put the link to the video because you already see the video. What the fuck's the point? But that's what I do now. But in terms of, again, switching over towards focusing on the Secular Talk website more, that's not something I'm interested in yet. I'm just not interested in that. And I don't know if I will be. There might come a time when YouTube is so bad, like so bad, that I feel like I have no choice but to move away from YouTube in one way or another, whether it's Steam it in DTube or whether it's my own website. But we're not at that point yet. And the bulk of my audience is on YouTube, so I just try to primarily stick to that. But there might come a time when I'm interested in that idea of moving more to my own website. But at the moment, that's just not the case. Travis from SK, South Korea? No, Saskatchewan, Canada. Okay. Kyle, been watching for a couple of years. You're easily the most objective, least hacky, honest political YouTuber. That's very nice of you to say. Thank you. Are there any specific issues you plan to bring up on Rogan's show? Actually, no. I mean, it's funny because I probably shouldn't do this, but I've been thinking about like, how the conversation is going to go, which is, again, a little silly, but there's so many things I want to talk to him about just because I think he's an interesting guy. Like Joey Diaz is like, I love Joey Diaz with a burning passion. And I learned about Joey Diaz through Joe Rogan's podcast. And so I want to talk to him about Joey Diaz. That's one thing I want to talk to him about. I want to talk to him about doing comedy because I know he's a comedian and I want to tell him my limited experience with that and how much I liked it and stuff. But then I'm sure he wants to discuss political stuff with me because he knows my show is political. And that's probably the main reason he's bringing me on, to have conversations about that. But I decided when push comes to shove, I'm just going to let the conversation flow basically. And I'm sure he's going to do the same. And actually the one thing I know for sure I'm doing, okay, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag now. I'm giving the spoiler now. And, this is exciting. I'm bringing, so there are two gifts that I'm bringing him. One of them is actually from Corin. Joe's a bow hunter. He likes hunting. Well, Corin was able to get his hands on like a limited edition bow hunting shirt, which has like a gel or something, which is supposed to be perfect for hunting. Actually, I don't know if it's for bow hunting or rifle hunting, but it's like this gel on the shoulder, which is like made for that. So we think Joe will like that. We're bringing him that. And then also I'm bringing him Kratom. I know he knows about it, but I want to give him some Kratom and let him try it. Joe Rogan, hopefully, if he's down for it, of course, will try a new substance because we're bringing it to him. So, and it's good that he knows about Kratom because, again, when the government continues to come for it, he will be a powerful voice fighting back against it and saying, hell no. Are you fucking crazy? This saves people's lives, man. There are pill addicts who need kratom. There are people who have PTSD, people who are depressed, people who have anxiety. There's all these problems that kratom helps so many people with. And the government is going to crack down on it because the government is bought by Big Pharma. And guess what Big Pharma makes? Opioids. So it'll be great that he knows about it. And I want him to get a little taste. Everybody knows I have kratom from time to time. So I figured I'll bring him a gift. I'll bring him a package of kratom. So that should be fun. Message retracted. That's good. It's not that he wouldn't fight for issues. I feel like he wouldn't go as far as the example you often give of calling establishment Democrats into your office and threatening them with primaries. That's an interesting point, Elijah, but I think he would. I do. I think he would. I don't know why I think that, but listen, man, Bernie knows about American politics. Like, he knows what FDR did. FDR did not fucking play, son. In fact, he went even further than I would have gone. Like, he packed the courts. He did, like, sleazy tricks to get his way. I mean, you look back on it and you go, it was better for the country that he did that in most instances. Of course, not Japanese internment. That was fucked up. But you know what I'm saying on economic issues. He didn't fucking play around. He was like, fuck you. I welcome the hatred of the Wall Street guys. Come at me, bitch. And I think Bernie's got that in him, man. I really do. I really do. I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, we'll know if/when he gets elected. But I think he's got that fight in him. I do. I really believe that. He really wants these things done, man. He wants Medicare for all. He wants a living wage. I know Bernie thinks about this all the time and will stop at nothing to get those things. You can get semi-automatic rifles in Finland, just replying for the Danish guy. Still, we don't have even close to level of homicides here as in the U.S. Yeah, no other modern country does. I still watch you even though it's predictable. I won't prejudge, avoid labels every chance we aren't in sports teams. I challenge everyone to avoid them. I actually like that comment a lot because it actually is true. If you're a longtime listener of Secular Talk, it's not like I'm not predictable. Of course I'm fucking predictable. I'm as predictable as it gets because you guys know generally what my philosophy is, and then you know how I view the world, and then the only new thing that you're getting is the actual individual stories. Like the news stories, it's obviously new to everybody, but it's pretty easy to predict what my take is going to be on different stories. I mean, I was talking to my friend who was arguing that AI is going to get to the point where AI can literally, AI can do my job. Like, you think like, no, you're a political commentator and, you know, you're unique in how you do it and yada, yada. Well, he was saying, no, artificial intelligence can learn how I do my job and do it better than me, which is a scary thought. What are your thoughts on Beto O'Rourke? He's running against Ted Cruz. Well, literally a moldy ham sandwich is preferable to Ted Cruz. That goes without saying. Beto O'Rourke is, I think, the only candidate that has momentum behind him. Wasn't there one other candidate or two other candidates that's a progressive in the race? I don't know enough about this, but my guess would be I probably would have preferred the other candidate over Beto O'Rourke because I've heard some questionable things about him in terms of he's almost too much of a wonk. Like, I remember back when I was with Justice Democrats, there being an issue because Beto O'Rourke was like, okay, I'm in favor of Medicare for all, but not in the way that Bernie proposed it. So I'm not going to be for the bill in the House or the bill in the Senate. And we were all like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? Like, no, you need to say you're for Medicare for all and then worry about the details later. Like, we'll work out the details after the fact, but you have to say you're for Medicare for all. And he's such a wonk that he was like, no, I'm for Medicare for all, but I don't like the exact way they proposed it. So I'm not going to say I'm for the bill. And so he's a little questionable in ways like that, but I know he doesn't take any corporate PAC money, which is good. So again, I prefer him over Ted Cruz. There was a different guy in the primary or woman in the primary who I think was more progressive, who I probably would have supported. But it looks now to be just a choice between Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz. And in that instance, I, of course, support Beto O'Rourke, even though he's a little bit quirky and maybe a little too wonky for my tastes. I'll be blunt. One day I'd like to take you on a date. Let me know when you're free. Thank you. Heavenly Armed asks, "Hey Kyle, just wondering if you're at all familiar with Canada's new Democratic Party and their leader Jagmeet Singh. Would love to hear whatever thoughts you have. I've seen that guy's name and seen some articles with him, but I don't know enough about him to comment on him. You know, if you want to learn about Canadian politics more, I know Rational National. He has a YouTube show, David Dole, and he is Canadian. I don't know how often he covers Canadian stuff, but I'm sure he covers it more than I do or than anybody else in the U.S. does. So check out Rational National show because he's got some good stuff that's about the U.S. and about Canada. So you might want to check him out. Would you like to join the Great Debate community? I don't know what that is, Max. Sounds interesting, though, but I don't know what that is. Primary start here in a few days. Could I please get your opinion on Seema Hernandez for Senate and Tom Wakely for governor? I can't find endorsement. Isn't Seema, I think is that, first of all, I think she's a Justice Democrat. Let me take a look. Okay, where are the candidates? The fuck you doing here, Justice Democrats? Our candidates. See all candidates here. Oh, what the fuck is happening? My computer's bugging out. Oh, okay. She's not coming up. I think she is. Hold on. Let's see. Oh, is Hernandez? Okay, Hernandez might be the person who's running against O'Rourke that I was talking about, who's probably preferable to O'Rourke. But you know what? I'm going to shut up and reserve judgment because I don't know enough. I shouldn't even really be entertaining the question as far as I have because I don't know enough to do that. So there's that. Anyway. The fuck happened? Here it is. Sorry, guys. Yeah, it might come as a surprise to some of you, but I don't, like, I have to fucking read this stuff like you guys do. So off the top of my head, some of these candidates, I don't know enough about them yet. I have to do my own research on them as well. And when I was with Justice Democrats, I was up on all the candidates. But now that I'm not with them anymore, I'm not with the organization. I should be clear. I'm still supporting every single Justice Democrat candidate. But now that I'm not with the organization, I'm not up as much on all the individual candidates. The ones I can tell you for sure that I absolutely adore: Amy Villela, Nevada's 4th District. Obviously, Alex Ocasio-Cortez is awesome in New York. I don't know what district she is, though. She's Queens, I think. Paula Jean Swearingen, Allison Hartson. Brent Welder has been making a splash recently, and there's the DCCC has been waging an offensive against some progressive candidates recently, and which is really pissing everybody off. What do you think about Phil Murphy so far? That's the New Jersey governor, right? Yes, he was formerly from Goldman Sachs, but so far he's been rather progressive. Well, listen, Dave, this is one of those things where in that last election, the furthest left option won almost across the board. So that's all we can ask for, man. That's all I can ask for in every election is that the furthest left option wins in the election, because our spectrum is so far to the right that sometimes you're not going to get the best Democrats. You're not going to get the best liberals. But yes, I supported Phil Murphy in that race, even though, like you said, he was formerly from Goldman Sachs. But I don't know what he's been doing since he's in office, but I know that he ran a pretty progressive campaign. Like he said he wanted legal marijuana. I think they're talking about a compromise now in New Jersey to maybe decriminalize, which is good. So yeah, I'm sure he's better than what the Republican alternative would have been. Laura Jenkins, I know you talked about guns, but those kids prove public education works. Yeah. Can we talk about funding our schools as well as protecting our children? Yes. You're so right. Those kids are fucking amazing. I love those kids so much. They're so smart and they don't take any shit. And if that's the representative of the next generation, we're in good fucking hands. But they have a lot of corruption to fight back against. That's for damn sure. But yeah, I've always been in favor of, in terms of funding public schools, I've always been in favor of either the state governments, the respective state governments, or the federal government picking up the slack and making it so that districts are fully funded. Because right now, the way schools are funded is it's a lot through property taxes, I think, but more local taxes. And so that's why you get so many schools that are underfunded. And then the schools that are in the high income areas are perfectly well funded. So we need to make up that difference. And the way you make up that difference is either at the state level or the federal level, you make up the difference for schools that are from more poor districts. And I think that's a great way to fight back against how broken our education system is. And obviously, no more privatization. What do you think about Sargon debating the alt-right lately? He's taking a harder stance against the right now that he's pushing his liberalist label. Also, you should give him some debate tips. He could use the help. You know, Sargon has always, to me, been kind of like a Jordan Peterson type character. So there are things I agree with him on, but there's also things I massively disagree with him on. But in terms of his crusade against the alt-right and fighting back against the alt-right, good. But, you know, fuck the alt-right. I mean, they're goofy. They're ridiculous. I mean, really? That's what they're going to care? They're going to sit around all day and that's what they're going to care about? Creating a fucking white ethno-state? What a giant waste of time. And what a like, that's not going to fix anything. You know, I always think back to, what's that guy's name? Matthew Heimbach, who's a white nationalist. It was kind of like a new American Workers' Party or something. It's like a Nazi party, or at least a white supremacist party, white nationalist party. He was interviewed at one of these Confederate protests where he was protesting in favor of keeping Confederate monuments up. And he went on this long rant against Trump. And he was like, the problem with Trump is that he's bought by Goldman Sachs and he's representing Wall Street and he's representing the military industrial complex and we're doing all these dumb wars. And I'm listening to this guy go and I'm like, okay, you're right about everything so far. And then at the end, his conclusion is, which is why we need a white ethno-state. What? That makes no sense. First of all, 99.9% of the people on fucking Wall Street and the people at Goldman Sachs and the people in the military industrial complex who you were just shitting on are white. So obviously the operative factor in being a good person is not the fucking skin color, you idiots. So anyway, this is my long way of saying the alt-right are off the spectrum and fucking moronic and hilariously stupid. And I support Sargon in fighting back against them, and I hope he does well. Do you watch Lionel Nation? No, I don't watch Lionel Nation, but when I was in college and high school, I listened to Air America. And that's partly where the inspiration came from for me to do what I do now. Is I love Tom Hartman. He was a big influence on me. Tom Hartman's show is fucking awesome. Mike Malloy, another Air America host. Love that guy. Lionel, you know, I listen to him as well. So I listened to all the Air America hosts back then. And then I thought, actually, was when I was listening to Tom Hartman, I was listening to Tom Hartman, reading Richard Dawkins, and reading Noam Chomsky. And I was like, I know what I want to do. I want to be a political commentator. And that was when I was in college, or high school or college, that I realized that. And then here we are today. But no, Lionel Nation, I don't listen to any of those guys anymore, even though I still love Tom Hartman to this day. Hey, fag, you have serious following in every major city. You need to start doing fan meet and greets when you travel. Would help your brand even more as well. Do this when you come to Toronto or else. You know, I don't often think about the meet and greet stuff, but I have to say what's enticing is looking at, like, Jimmy Dore does his live shows, and it fucking kills, man. And his live shows are awesome, and he's got such a passionate following, and he sells out places quickly. Obviously, Secular Talk is big enough as well where we could do that. We could do some sort of a live show. But, you know, I haven't put enough thought into it and haven't done any organizing or anything. But maybe at some point down the road, I will do that because it looks fun, man. And I like the live feedback. You know, this is something I wanted to talk to Rogan about, how he feels when he does comedy. I've had similar feelings with similar things that I'll save for the conversation with him. But there's something that's awesome about that, like having that live feedback from the audience and meeting people and stuff. I send money because I support you, but if you at least Google and check out the GDC, you seem like you'd make a great member. I'd appreciate it a lot. GDC. GDC. Okay, I'll check it out when I'm done. As a Pennsylvania resident, do you have any thoughts on the NC? And we already did gerrymandering. effects on the midterms? Might future states file similar cases? You think it might get to the Supreme Court? I don't know. I don't know if it'll get to the Supreme Court, but my understanding at this point is that it's supposed to help the Democrats. That's because it was massively gerrymandered in favor of the Republicans, and now as a result of the decision, it's supposed to be more fair and objective. And so that is going to end up helping the Democrats because it was so massively skewed in favor of the Republicans. That's all I know about that at the moment. Do you think some people are too far gone to vote for a populist left candidate? Yeah, of course. Like the ultra-religious people in East Texas who keep voting for Louis Gohmert. That's a great example. And the answer is yes. So listen, man, there's always limits. There's always limits when you're dealing with human beings. So my argument has always been that populist left ideas can win elections because we know they can win elections. So the polls all show 80% of people want to raise the minimum wage. 60% of people want to legalize marijuana. You have 60% of people want a Medicare for all system. You go down the list, only 17% of people still want to be in Afghanistan. So you go down the list of populist left economic policies and social policies, and people agree. They just agree with those ideas. So I think those ideas can win elections, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a 25% to 30% block of the country, contingent of the country, that aren't lunatics. And in any society, you're going to get that. 25 to 30% of the U.S. is too far gone. You know, these are people who would love fucking Rick Santorum or will never abandon Donald Trump no matter what the fuck he ever does. And they watch Fox News and they think Fox News is giving them the straight dope. So yeah, at the end of the day, you're never going to get everybody to agree on something, but populist left ideas, I think they'd win elections and they'd win in a landslide. The only places where they might not are in, like the example of the district you gave where Louis Gohmert wins, or in some deep, deep red areas in Mississippi. But even in moderately red districts in Mississippi or Louisiana or whatever, I think populist left candidates can beat Republican candidates. So they can win, and I think they can win better than any other ideology, but there's always limits, and there's always going to be an opposition no matter what your ideas are. Hi, Kyle from Russia here. Thank you for standing up against xenophobia and for promoting peace. P.S. When is that appearance on the Jimmy Dore Show? So I'm going to be on the Jimmy Dore Show. I think it's Monday after I'm on TYT, but I don't think it's live. So I'm going to be, we'll record it and then he uploads it whenever he uploads it. But I think I'm on his show on Monday after TYT. I find the use of white culture weird. In Europe, mostly white to Americans, each country has its own culture and differ greatly. So you can't really put them all under the same umbrella term. Yeah, I agree. And that's one of the problems with their ideology. It's people who believe in white nationalism. I mean, it seems like a stupid question to ask them, well, if you're a white nationalist, who counts as white? But they really don't have a definition. I mean, again, I know that sounds silly, but it's true. They don't have a definition. There was a time when Irish people weren't considered white. There was a time when Italians weren't considered white. Jews are still not considered white, even though their skin is literally white. Or it's beige. We've been over this before in terms of what the colors of skin really are. But so there's always a time. Now there are some people of Hispanic with a Hispanic background who are considered white. Like if you ever look at some of those forums, it says, ask you what you are, and one of the options is non-white Hispanic and white Hispanic. So there's they don't have an answer for shit like that because they're ridiculous people. They don't think through their ideology. They're just dumb. So yeah, there is a problem there because the different kinds of white there's all different kinds of white. So yes, it is hard to put your finger on and nail down. I feel like Bernie is too weak. If Bernie gets in and becomes a lame duck president, then could it hurt the progressive movement? No, again, I think the problem would never be with Bernie. I think the problem would be with everybody Bernie has to fight back against, because he's going to get 100% opposition from Republican politicians, and he's going to get at least half of the Democratic Party objecting to him with his ideas, because his ideas really overturn the apple cart. He's going to do nothing but piss off corporate America, 100%. So yeah, I don't think Bernie's too weak. I think he's the strongest possible option, I think. But I don't know exactly how hard he'll fight or which exact ways he'll fight, but I think he will fight. And I think the problem will be the opposition he faces. Facebook failed to post your Dylan Radigan segment in my timeline. Posted Jenk's interview. containing crazy distortion in Radigan's feed. Fuckery or nah? Well, I saw that interview too with Cenk and Dylan Radigan. Yeah, no, I don't think it was. They weren't fucking with the feed. Nobody was fucking with the feed, I don't think. In terms of the algorithm fucking me over, of course, that's totally true. Absolutely. The algorithm fucks over independent news outlets, 100%, right wing and left wing. And this is the problem. One of the many problems with Russiagate is that under the guise of protecting everybody, saving everybody from fake news, now what happens is Facebook and YouTube and Google, they prioritize all the corporate media outlets because they go, these are authoritative, these are trustworthy. And all the other news outlets, they derank. And they do it under the guise of, well, this is obviously the right thing to do because we're just keeping the fake news from everybody. So that's why, this guy Secular Talk, we don't recommend his videos anymore, and they don't, show up on the trending page under any circumstance. So what more do you want? We deranked him. So that's why I was gaining 30,000 subs a month during the election, and now I'm only gaining 3,000 subs a month. And listen, if you were to tell me, hey, that was the peak of the election, more people are interested in politics, that's true. So if, let's say it dropped 50%, which is a giant drop, I'd still be gaining 15,000 subs a month. But no, I'm gaining 3,000. Why? Because it's the fucking algorithm. That's why. The algorithm is fucking us, for sure. There's no doubt about it. In fact, they've admitted it in multiple articles that we've covered. They kind of let it out. They let it slip, and they had to, backpedal later. Okay. Hey, Kyle, I fear that if Bernie wins the election, he would be so much for the people that the rich would do the same thing they did to JFK. Hey, Lawrence, listen, man, many people would call you a conspiracy theorist. I'd say it's certainly in the realm of what's possible. Certainly in the realm of what's possible. So, man, we live in a fucked up world, but it's possible. But Bernie is looking like he's going to run anyway. Have you been to our old country, Italy? Do you have any opinion on Berlusconi? He's the Trump of Italy since 1994. Loved the show since 2008. Crystal, I've never been to Italy. I should have gone 2 times. I was supposed to go, and I didn't end up going. And it is my motherland or fatherland or homeland or whatever the fuck you want to call it, technically. I'm mostly Italian in my background. But I'm full American, man. I've never been there. And Berlusconi, yeah, I think you nailed it. Your description is totally right. Berlusconi is Trump of Italy. I mean, there's that recent picture of him, which is fucking hilarious. He's like all totally plastic surgeried out, and his face is like a color that doesn't exist in nature, and his hairline is fucking perfectly straight because it's all fake. And it looks like they'd been operating on him for like the past 3.5 days straight, and he's just got this look like, I am a wax sculpture. And wasn't he having sex with like young people and shit? So anyway, there's that. What are your thoughts on the Medicare extra proposal? Is it a weak half measure or a viable compromise in the fight for single payer? It's a weak half measure. That's what that is. We're not accepting anything but Medicare for all. Fuck out of here. We're done with this, giving an inch on issues that are not debatable. That's like giving an inch on a living wage. Like, hey, if people work full time, should they make enough money to survive? Let me fucking think about that one. The answer is of course. And if you take a position that's not duh, then you're just wrong. So by the same token, if you're not for Medicare for all, you're just wrong. You could be for one version of single payer or another. You could have a debate about the particulars of the single payer system. But if you're not talking about a single payer system and you're talking about keeping the for-profit motive in place, well, then you're wrong. So it's good because it shows that the establishment has been beaten back so thoroughly that they now feel like they have to bring up something with Medicare in it. That's the good sign, is that the establishment's like, oh, fuck, we're going to have to add like the word Medicare in our proposals, because if not, we're going to get fucking routed. So that's good because it shows that the left is like, fuck you. But ultimately, no, we don't accept a fucking compromise. We force them to get to the position of Medicare for all, where 60% of Americans already are. Kyle, did you know that there's a law in place that allows us to invade The Hague if they hold and try our soldiers for war crimes? It's as American as it gets. I'm a little skeptical of that law existing. But having said that, yeah, we ignore international law like nobody's fucking business anyway. So, like, what are they going to do to us? That's basically the U.S. argument when we ignore international law. It's, okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You know who we are? We're the US, bitch. We'll fuck you up. So that's why when we violate international law like nobody's business, nobody talks about regime change. Nobody talks about, punishing us or sanctions, because we run the world and we grandfather in our massive hypocrisy in international law. If you're ever in the DFW area, could you find time to meet fans and talk politics? Do you plan to come here anytime soon? Okay, I'm now that guy who's going to have to look up DFW area. I don't know what that means. Oh, Dallas Fort Worth, of course. Yeah, I should have known that. That should have came to my head, but I'm an idiot. No, I don't have any plans to be in the Dallas Fort Worth area, but like I was talking about before, if ever we start doing some live shows or something, yeah, I would go to all the major cities, including Dallas Fort Worth. Although Dallas, is kind of right-leaning. It's interesting. Certain areas of Texas are not at all right-leaning, but some areas of Texas are right-leaning. I think Dallas is one that leans right. Regarding the YouTube adpocalypse, would having more YouTube Red subscribers make Google more beholden to users rather than advertisers? Is that a good way to get Google to listen to users and creators? I don't think anything will make YouTube and Google listen to creators and users. But having said that, YouTube Red is still a better idea, I think. I think it's good for us creators if you guys use, YouTube Red. So, because I think that cushions it more if there's another adpocalypse. By the way, there was never a full recovery from adpocalypse. You could talk to anybody. We were 50 to 60% cut in revenue, Secular Talk saw. I know it's very similar for Jimmy Dore, similar for David Pakman. So that's permanent. But there was a time when we were making nothing. I was on like a blacklist. I made nothing. But yeah, it bounced back. But there's still like a 50 or 60% cut. So yeah, Patreon is really what saved me, and you guys contributing to the Patreon, that means the world to me. Patreon.com/Secular Talk. If you just want to give like $2 a month or something, that's like the way I recommend people support the show. Just give like $2 a month, and that helps. And it, you know what it is? It's peace of mind, because I can't even tell you how it felt when it was literally zero coming in from YouTube. I was like, is it over? That's what I was saying. I was like, is this over? Is YouTube over? Is that it? Is YouTube over? It might be over. That's what I was thinking. But yes, you're right that using YouTube Red is a way to cushion against an adpocalypse, because that helps us. And also just Patreon is a great way to help us. Not just me, but David Pakman, Jimmy Dore, whoever you like. Humanist Report. Kyle, would you find yourself in a debate where you would defend Palestine and be against Israel? I've done that already. I'm not against Israel. Like, I don't want to wipe Israel off the fucking planet. But I believe that Palestinians should have freedom and self-determination. And right now they're under permanent occupation, nonstop. So, and the U.S. is aiding and abetting that. They're aiding and abetting the permanent occupation of Palestine and the repeated bombing of Gaza, for example, and illegal settlements in the West Bank. So I've been a staunch defender of Palestine because I think they're getting screwed over. I think Palestinians are screwed over and massively oppressed. And we need to have some sort of a deal. I originally supported a two-state deal and a free and independent Palestine. Now I lean more in favor of a one-state solution. But in a one-state solution, you have to give Palestinians totally equal rights and equal representation, and no more military occupation and no more apartheid. Wrong, bitch. It's a thing. Look up Haig's Invasion Act. It was passed during Bush's first term. Okay. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm probably not going to look that up. But nonetheless, you've spoken your mind. Hey, Kyle, huge fan and supporter. Keep it up, man. Thank you, Elizabeth. What do you think of the argument that universal income reinforces the idea that government is for everyone rather than negative income tax? I generally prefer universal programs over non-universal programs. So it's not like I'm against the idea of universal basic income. I just always thought that in my mind, I want to get the money to go to where it needs to go. So if you have a negative income tax rate, that means that poor people get the money and rich people get taxed and their money gets redistributed. That doesn't mean that people wouldn't be rich anymore. You'd still have rich people, but you'd have a more reasonable allocation of resources. But yeah, the argument for universal basic income, listen, as long as it's feasible, as long as it's economically feasible, then I'm in favor of it. But I just don't know if it's economically feasible. And by that, I mean, I don't know if we could just create a universal basic income overnight, which is like a social security check for everybody in the country, basically. I don't know if we could do that and, have our budget stay in order. Not that it is now. I mean, we waste so much money on war. So, not that the budget's already in order, but I don't know how feasible it is. If I get convinced of universal basic income being feasible, then I'm in favor of it. But in absence of that evidence, and as of right now, I haven't been convinced of that. I support a negative income tax rate, which means that if you're poor, you get a subsidy from the government. You get a check from the government. You're middle class, you get a check from the government. But when you get to upper middle class and rich, that's when you start net paying taxes. So you don't get a check. Under a universal basic income system, everybody gets a social security check basically every month. So that's my general breakdown of that. American war criminals like Kissinger should be put on trial before The Hague, though there's no chance in hell that will ever happen. That is 1,000,000% correct. He should. That guy's a fucking criminal, and he should be. The history book should treat that guy like he's Hitler. Like he's Hitler, or like he's, okay, you don't want to go that far? Okay, he's Himmler. He's Goebbels. Because that's really what it is. He has multiple genocides, plural, on his hands. So the fact that he's like, casually celebrated, and Trump met with him the other day and spoke about how great he is, and fucking Hillary was talking about how great he is in a Democratic primary. It's like we live in the goddamn Twilight Zone. That guy's got millions of dead bodies on his hands. And they did the same now with what's his face? Billy Graham. To be fair to Billy Graham, he's not as bad as Henry Kissinger, but he advocated for killing 1 million Vietnamese people. He didn't actually do it, but he advocated for it. He said, bomb the dikes and fuck it. Kill all the civilians. Who cares? He implored Nixon to do that. Him and Nixon had conversations about how much the Jews suck in leaked tapes. The guy's fucked up, man. And then he also predicted the end of the world in 1949. He said within the next 5 years, the world will end, and it didn't. And Obama even tweeted the other day, Billy Graham was a great man. Like, what the fuck is this? Trump and Obama were blowing this guy. Meanwhile, he's a menace and a televangelist and a religious huckster. We have to stop, holding up as heroes these horrifically terrible people. It's one thing if you take a benign character and hold them up as a hero, like, okay, he's whatever. But this isn't even a benign person. This guy's he's a fucking criminal. So, anyway. Should the internet be free, paid with our taxes? They should definitely do the public broadband at the state level everywhere. And that's being debated now after net neutrality was repealed. There's some places like Chattanooga, Tennessee already has public broadband. So I support that everywhere. They should do public broadband everywhere. That'd be awesome. Do you support apprenticeships as an alternative system to traditional college? Yes, I do, Garrett. That's a good question. Germany has a great system of apprenticeships, and people get a trade and they learn the trade, and then they're successful and they make money, and they never go into a tremendous amount of debt before they graduate. So yes, we should have an apprentice system. Absolutely. Hi, Kyle. I'm also Kyle with an I. I'm considering about going back to college and major in political science. Any advice for the major? Food for thought. P.S. Been a huge fan of the show for 5 years. Keep it up, man. Hey, thank you. Most people who go to college for political science end up then becoming a lawyer, and they go to law school. I didn't do that. I just got my political science degree, and then I was gone. So it's up to you. It depends what you want to do. I mean, if you want to get a political science degree and then maybe run for office, you could do that. You want to get a political science degree and then get into media, you could do that, but I would probably say you could take more classes that are directly geared towards media. But it's up to you and what you want to do. I would say if you want to be involved in politics, get involved with campaigns at the grassroots level. That would be my advice. And other than that, I think you'll enjoy learning about political science, because I certainly did. You never talked about Elon Musk. What's your opinion of him? I don't know. He's just a fucking rich guy who's like an inventor. I don't really think much of him. I don't really think much about guys like that. I'm going to guess he's overrated just because I know his name. Like, I don't want to know that guy's name. He's taking up fucking mental space in my brain, and I don't care about him. But yeah, he's just an inventor dude who's a billionaire or something. So I don't think much about him. Should sex change surgery be covered under universal health care? Should it be considered as a cosmetic surgery, or should it be considered as a treatment for dysphoria? It should be covered, and it should be considered as a treatment for dysphoria. Now, I understand that that's a controversial position, and some of you guys will be like, fuck off, really? You're going to have, under a universal healthcare system, sex change surgery? Well, yes, because I didn't used to understand transgenderism, but now I think I do, and it's terrifying to me. This idea of like, no, you're literally born and you feel like you're trapped in the wrong body. So you're born biologically male, but you feel female, or you're born biologically female, but you feel male. So yeah, the way you fix that is nobody cuts off their dick willy-nilly. Like nobody's like, hey, it's Tuesday, let's chop off our dicks. So since that's the case, like, okay, so it's a real thing that exists and people need treatment for it. So if you don't give them the treatment, it's kind of like torture for somebody who's trans to stay in their biological shell that they feel like is the exact opposite of who they are. And if you don't understand it, think about it like this. Let's say you're a straight cisgendered male like me. Imagine being forced to wake up every day and put on a dress and put on lipstick and put on a long wig and put on blush on your face and eye makeup. You'd be fucking mortified to go out in public, right? Well, that's what trans people feel like if they want to get the surgery and they haven't gotten the surgery. So it's like a form of fucking torture. So yes, I would cover it, and it would be treatment for dysphoria. Are you investing in nationwide 4G or 5G internet similar to South Korea? Are you for investing in that? Sure, yeah. Anything that builds U.S. infrastructure, I agree with, man. I think we waste so much money on war and corporate welfare and so much stupid shit, tax cuts for the rich, and then we don't invest at all in our infrastructure, and it's a fucking crime. It's a crime. Our infrastructure gets a grade of D+. Why shouldn't we have an A+ infrastructure, and along with that, have fucking nationwide 4G? Fuck it, of course. Discuss free trade with Destiny on his stream and watch the best of Matt Dillahunty 2017 on YouTube, better than Dawkins or Hitchens. I know of Matt Dillahunty. I used to watch when he had his Austin or Houston public access show about atheism. I used to watch that a long time ago. It's good, but it's just, to me, it's just very kind of straightforward atheism arguments. So I like the guy, but I don't know, not my cup of tea. Listen, man, I like him. I'm not trying to say he's a bad guy or anything. In fact, I'm sure I agree with him on a tremendous amount of stuff. I'm just saying that I feel like the whole new atheism phase, I feel like I went through that in like high school and college a little bit. And again, that's not me saying that, well, now I'm above that and I don't like those guys anymore. No, I still have a tremendous amount of respect for many of them. To this day, I mean, I love Richard Dawkins. I absolutely love Richard Dawkins. But it is something that I feel like I'm not the same person I was then, and I don't need to sit around all day looking at arguments that prove atheism is right, or arguments that disprove theism, because at this point I file that under duh. I've already thought about that for countless hours and made those arguments myself and read 1,000 of those arguments. So it's just not my cup of tea at the moment. Okay, and on that note, guys, okay, I'm going to do one more. You could stop sending in the super chats now. I'll answer whatever remains, but you could stop sending them in now because I've been talking for a long time. And I'm fucking hot. I feel like my face is probably red. I feel like flushed in here. It's hot. But anyway, let's see. Christopher Davis. Pacman posted a video titled "Debunked: Socialism Has Never Worked," where he states that Stalinism is a right-wing totalitarian perversion of Marxism. Yeah, no, I think it's okay to admit that it's authoritarian leftism. You just have to admit that it's authoritarian. It's the people like Steven Crowder who act like, no, that's not even authoritarian. It's just leftism. Like, that's just what it is. They're the problem. But I used to argue what Pacman argued, which is that Stalinism is right-wing totalitarian, but I don't think that's accurate, because then then what room is there for Hitler? So if Stalin counts as a right-wing totalitarian or a right-wing authoritarian, then what's Hitler? Hitler is also a right-wing authoritarian. So what, there's no daylight between Stalin and Hitler? No, they had very different ideologies, but they were both murderous dictators. So the thing that marries them together is the authoritarianism, and that's what's so damaging. Hitler happened to be a right-wing authoritarian. Stalin was a left-wing authoritarian. So, yeah, I would disagree with Pacman over the specifics there, but I do think that he's generally, when he speaks about political ideologies, I find him usually right. I think he's usually right when he talks about broad political ideologies. Should see Carl's debate with Richard Spencer. Essentially, he made him admit he wants an aristocracy. Interesting. I do still worry that the regressive left is popular enough in regular culture that the pendulum of casual discrimination against men and Caucasians is in vogue, baby. Yeah, no, I don't think white men are discriminated against. But I do think that there is, no, you know what? The regressive left or social justice warriors, I think they're waning. They definitely exist, the people who are obsessed with identity politics, and who love to deplatform people and censor people, but I think they're waning in popularity, and the libertarian left, like myself, are rising up. We live in an age where our public forums are run by private companies. How do we rectify the fact that social media can effectively silence free speech and do it legally? Also, read the $100 donation. I think I did, Elijah, but I'm going to go back to it. How do we rectify that? Oh, that's the one I just read, the $100 donation. And thank you, Cunty Cat, for that. That was very nice of you. Even though he said that Caucasians are discriminated against. But thank you. Yeah, how do we rectify the fact that these are private companies with the fact that they have the ability to censor speech? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they're going to have the right to ban whoever they want to ban because they are a private company and there's nothing you could do to change that unless you nationalize Twitter, which does seem a little extreme to me. So they're going to be private companies, but I just think public pressure is all you could do, is put public pressure on them to try to stick to the notion of free speech as much as possible. Okay. And that's it, everybody. So thanks so much. This was fun. I always love doing these things. This is the pre-Rogan Secular Talking Smack live stream for everybody. And I will see you both hours of TYT on Monday. Check that out, because that should be fun. And I will see you also on Joe Rogan on Tuesday and 11 a.m. Pacific time. And then also, like I said, I'll be on Jimmy Dore show when I'm in California, but I don't know when he's going to upload it, so I'm not sure you could watch that one live. But watch me live on Rogan, watch me live on TYT, and I love you all. And even though I don't believe in prayer, pray for me, because I'm about to take a plane, and you know how much I fucking hate planes. Peace, everybody.